On this episode of the Minutemen Initiative, we are getting back to the basics. It's me and Steven. We're going to be breaking down probably the number one asked question we get, and that is, how do I make a team? How do I form a group of guys to rely on, train with, and prepare with? And we're going to break that down. We're going to talk about how we actually do that. We're going to talk about the importance of having a mission statement, an overall concept, and a goal for the group, and then how to start recruiting or finding individuals for that group that are going to be a good, high-quality fit. And then we get a little bit into overall cohesion and coordination for the group and how to pursue that and maintain that. So it's a really, again, common question that we get. It's actually a big reason that we do the podcast, and it's a big part of the idea behind the Minutemen Initiative. So Steven and I are going to break this down. Hope you enjoy the episode, and we'll see you on the other side.
Mr. Jacob Barlow.
How's it going, dude?
It's going.
It's going back to the roots. We're back to the dynamic duo.
Yeah. The way God intended.
No, we've had a string. I mean, it has been a string. I don't know if we've had a guestless episode in quite some time. I don't know how many episodes it's actually been.
It's been a minute. I can't even think of our last one that we did, just me and you, but
it's been a lot. But they've been awesome. So, and actually on that, a little bit of housekeeping for our audience. We've had some listeners reach out and say that they appreciate the that we try to keep it pretty clean with the old wordage and the vocabulary. And yeah, we do. Steven and I obviously don't really swear and stuff like that, but anytime we have a subject matter expert or a guest on, we don't really have we're not like, now watch your mouth. We're just, we don't want people to be themselves. So, but we have had people reach out and be like, hey, I listened to this with my kiddos, or hey, we listened to this. One guy was like, yeah, I listened to this with my church group. So some of those episodes have been kind of tough, and I was like, dude, that's, first of all, sick. That sounds like an awesome church group.
Yeah.
Second of all, nice. Because so with that in mind, I just wanted to let everybody know, because some people don't know this, but depending on where you listen to the podcast, I do take the time to mark them accordingly when I post them. So if it does have explicit language in it, it is going to be marked as such. So depending on where you listen, you might see a little E next to the title of the podcast or somewhere near it. And then usually in the information, below the description, it'll actually say explicit or clean. So I just wanted to throw that out there for a little bit for those that do care. I know probably 90% doesn't, but for those of you that do, I want to respect that and let you know. We just give you an alternative. So we do, like I said, we do mark them. Keep an eye out for that. If you see that E or that label of explicit, then just know there's going to probably be profanity in that podcast.
Be F-bombs getting dropped.
So,
but seriously,
yeah, and to be quite honest, it's something I don't even really notice until coming from a military background, then going from military into construction, and then also in this industry, it's
yeah,
just vulgar language is just part of it. Now I make it a point to not swear myself. I try not to. Sometimes I let loose the dogs of war, dude. Or let slip the dogs of war, and they I'll kind of blast it out there every once in a while on accident. But I do try to be intentional about not doing it personally, and that's just for my own spiritual walk, as well as I got kids with little ears, man, and those guys are sponges and they pick stuff up.
Oh yeah, dude.
Like I always say, what the, at stuff.
Yeah.
And my kids say that now.
Your boy was just saying it the other day.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, it's fine. But it's just, they say it the same way I do too. Like if something weird happens, I'll be like, what the, kind of like, what was that? And, yeah, my youngest will do it.
Dude, I was watching,
or my middle child. My youngest is super young, so he's not talking yet. But yeah,
I was watching the new. It's terrible, but you just gotta. And I'm sure you've been there. Well, maybe not. Maybe you're a better parent than me. But I was watching the new Top Gun, Maverick or whatever, and I don't know. It was near the end. It's like right before Tom Cruise got shot down in it, and I think one of them drops the F-bomb, like they got hit or something.
Yeah.
By one of the fighter jets. And my boy is just sitting there, and that's the only word he picks out, and he just repeats it right there. And I was just like, I looked over at my wife, and I was like, with big eyes, like, oh no. But she was just kind of looking at me like, don't make a big deal of it. Because if you make a big deal of it, then it's like, they think it's funny. They're like,
remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just didn't even react, and obviously I've never heard him say it again, but I was just like, what are the chances? Like, and really that movie doesn't have like a whole lot of swearing, but just at that spot I was like, no.
Yeah, that was actually a really good movie.
Yeah,
it's a good classic American action movie, but yeah, dude, it's a journey. So yeah, anyways, just wanted to throw that out there. I wanted to make that known, and yeah, I appreciate the people that did reach out and kind of let us know, like, hey, this is something that, we care about, and we're just curious, like,
yeah,
but wanted to let you know, and they all came with very positive, feedback and stuff as well, which we appreciate. And yeah, big thanks to those of you that do reach out and give us topic ideas or tell us like, hey, this episode's really helped. And
yeah, it's like kind of encouragement for us to keep.
Yeah.
Not that we'd stop because we love doing it, but it's like, it's nice to hear feedback,
It is.
It is. Because it is time consuming, and
yeah,
it takes away from other things that we do as well. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's good to hear feedback. It's good to know what people want to listen to, and then like kind of which episodes like people really like or kind of gravitating to a little bit. But
yeah, and it puts like a human element to all the numbers that our analytics show us.
Yeah,
because like we have, we see like an approximation of how many people listen and where they're listening from and stuff like that. So all the like podcast analytics that we get, it's cool, but there's always that thing in the back of your head that like, are there really people out there listening? And this last year has been,
it's the aliens, dude.
Yeah. Oh no. No, get back down into your cage. We're not doing that again this episode. Anyways, we might, but
what is it? The non-human, what was it again?
Oh, the non-human biologics.
Yeah, non-human biologics listening.
Oh no.
Hey man, I'm not.
No, but yeah, this last year it's been cool to connect with people via the podcast or people reaching out to us on our social media and stuff because they listen to the podcast or whatever. So it's been pretty cool. And also, kind of on that topic, we get a lot of requests or questions. Basically people that are like, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? And one of the most resounding and frequent questions we get is, how do you build a team?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
we get that from, not even from podcast listeners. We get that from just, obviously we have a gun store, so just people within the community.
Yeah.
Coming in, just trying to figure out how to even get started with it all. And we've kind of figured it out weirdly. Not like fully, but I'm just saying like we
got a good system.
We do have a good system.
Yep.
And ours varies a little bit different than everyone else's. But I guess to start it out, like if you're just kind of getting into the scene and it's like, I don't know, like what's the importance of having like a group of people that you actually trust, like an actual core of individuals. We can just break that down real quick. I mean, ultimately, you know, you're going to get killed, dude, if you don't have like that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
If something really bad happens and you don't have a group of people that you can rely on, I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but I'm just saying you're going to have a better chance. You're going to increase your odds a whole lot more by having like a contingency of individuals that are prepared, and you guys are all like kind of tracking like how each other feel about things, what each other has for supplies, like what your resources are. So
yeah,
if you don't have that, and some I don't know, it gets a little bit weird. It's like how far do you want to get into that? It's kind of up to you how far you want to take it. But I mean, I guess any level of that would be better than nothing. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean I think that's like the main thing. Like you're just gonna die, dude, if you're gonna go into the one man army kind of like mentality. Like,
yeah,
for anyone that's played that video game, it's like, no, dude. And even that video game, you're not one man, so it's like
you're talking about Army of Two
or Army of Two. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, Army of Two. Yeah, that's what it was.
Dude, just wearing weird steel plate on your face. Just that game was
literally
random.
Just they took that bank robbery that happened back in the day and made a video game out of it.
Yeah, literally, dude.
Yeah.
Just walking around with like belt feds and literally like steel plate armor all over their bodies.
Yeah.
And like flames on their masks.
Yeah. It's like Welder meets Rambo,
1980s
dude.
bank robbers meets freaking what's that guy from the comics? Not Deadshot, but
Deadpool?
Deathstroke, dude.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so anyways, on team building, we're not going to be talking about that today. Today we're going to be talking about archery. So I'm just kidding. Yeah. No, we're obviously breaking that down. And Steven started out with the reality of like you can't do this stuff by yourself. I mean,
numbers equals capability.
Yeah.
The more people you have, like everyone's got different passions and different abilities. So it's like,
yeah,
I'm not going to sit here and say like, dude, I'm good at everything. Like there's like one or two things I'm probably good at, and then I'm okay at some things, and then I suck at other things. So that's just like, that's the way everyone is.
Well, and you got your people that are like, well, I'm just going to kind of like disappear off into the wilderness. And it's like, let me back up even farther. I think a lot of people we'll kind of get into some ideology here. I think a lot of people have this assumption that, you know, everyone has this idea of like when I will engage my contingency plans, you know.
Yeah.
It's just like when the EMP goes off, I'll know or whatever. And it's like, dude, the whole thing here is that we don't know what kind of thing we're dealing with.
Yeah.
We might be dealing with non-human biologics. We might be dealing with
rioters.
Civil unrest. It might just be like a slow burn, a slow unwinding into tyranny, like kind of like what we seem to be seeing. And that line is going to be continuously eroded and pushed. And you're going to, just by the nature of wanting to live in a civil society, because we all do to some degree, even for your hardcore, don't step on Sneck, like, don't tread on me, guys, you know, it's like, dude, you're still mobbing and
Yeah.
sipping your wine in your civil society, and you don't want to be out of that.
Yeah. Dude, it reminds me of like all the people that are just jamming out to Try That in a Small Town right now by Jason Aldean. It's like,
yeah,
like, okay, like, yeah, I mean, are you actually ready to do anything? Like,
yeah.
it's like, I mean, good for that song to make it all the way to the top, and like, you know, it was trying to get canceled and all this stuff, but it's like, but actually, are you going to actually do anything?
Yeah, it reminds me when we had Sky Pirate Actual on our podcast a few episodes ago. He like went off on all the people that are like, we're gonna go hunt down pedos and stuff like that, and he was basically calling people out and being like, are you though? Like, I don't think I think he said like, are you actually about that life or something like that? And I was like, yeah, dude. I mean,
everyone's got the access to it. That's the thing. Like what he was saying. So it's like, if you were actually going to do it, you would have already done it by now. Like,
well, and also his point was like, how about you help in the way that makes sense?
He's not saying
like,
people should go like hunt people down.
Yeah. He was saying like, put your money where your mouth is. If you really want to make a difference, start donating to the people that are actually out there putting in the work. But that's kind of a different, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. I was just saying like that whole reality and mentality is plays into this, because I think, like I was saying before, it's like if you're going to be this one man show and you're going to, disappear off into the, you're going to go out and be Radagast the Brown out in the middle of the wilderness and live with animals. It's like, dude, sick. But I mean,
I don't know. I've seen
you
that.
better be set up. Like you better fully invest in that idea, and you better hope that you're going to be able to actually do that. I mean, what happens if like the area you're set up at, that property gets bought for development? Or, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many unknowns.
Yeah. Yeah, there's also, like, I mean, what's that one show that's, like, pretty popular right now where people go out and live by themselves? It's like...
Oh.
I don't know when it's going to end. It's basically just trying to live out there longer than the next person.
Yeah, it's like,
dude, those guys, some of those people are, like, legit, like, survivalists.
Yeah.
And they don't even make it out there that long.
Yeah.
And it's like...
Well, a lot of people forget that as humans, we're social creatures. Like, we actually, even if you're super introverted, at some point you crave companionship of some kind.
Yeah.
Now,
I think even introverted people still have like, that they usually do good on one-on-one time. So
yeah. They got like core friends.
They don't do good with like big group gatherings. Like, I would say I'm a little bit more introverted than extroverted. But yeah. Because big crowds and hanging out with a big group of people just kind of is like too much for me. I'm just kind of like, no, I don't want it. But
yeah. I think, I mean, and then, you've got your people that have a family and they're like, well, I'm going to take my family and we're going to, like, my family is my team. And I think that's valid. I think there's some truth to that. But I think it's even better to have multiple families. I mean, again, like, look back at history of the, our podcast is the Minutemen Initiative, and we talk about it a lot. But the original Minuteman was they had families. They were family men,
Yeah,
and they had wives and kids, and they lived in communities, and it was the fathers, it was the men of the households that worked together, and they knew, like, well, and that understanding was shared by their families.
Yeah.
And their families would then kind of band together and take care of each other, kind of like community style at that time. The men would have to go off and fight, and all the women would work together and raise the kids together.
Yeah.
And
what was that called in the military when you deploy and all the wives would have that?
I don't remember what that was called. Is it the family readiness something?
FRS, family readiness?
No.
Center? No, center's not even spelled with an S.
FRG?
Family readiness group? Yeah.
Was that it?
Yeah, FRG, I think. Dude.
Yeah. Dude, and yeah.
Like a much more cool version of that.
Yeah, that was that. I think the military could have I've heard there's really good.
There probably is.
like
It's
that.
very dependent, I think, because isn't there like one wife that's kind of leader? Usually it's like the first sergeant's wife or something.
Yeah, dude, which is crazy.
Which is very dependent on,
because that could be anybody, dude.
Dude, it could be that. I don't know, dude.
Yeah, I think it's FRG, but I don't remember.
Yeah, family readiness group.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
But anyways, yeah, and
Not
honestly,
not
like
that dumb.
So
that's gay. No.
Sit down. No. So, dude, this one's gonna be a rambly one. So just buckle up, people.
It's gonna be good though. Get your notepads out. You better be taking notes right now. Okay, they said FRG.
We're gonna build an FRG, dude. Yeah. Anyways, no, but long story short, you need, you should have a group of of individuals that you trust, because not just like the men or women in the group, you also have the spouses, and there's extended family that is added to that, which also adds just more capability.
Yeah.
So,
but it also creates a more a higher logistical burden, you know.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
There's a lot of that. Like, you need the additional capabilities, and you need to further coordinate to cover that big group logistically. So, yeah, but I mean, we're not here to necessarily sell you on the idea of a big group, because I mean, it's like I said, it's probably our most frequently asked question.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a big group, just a group. In general,
I'm sorry, I meant just a group. Yeah, it's gotta be huge, 100 men strong. No, it's gonna be small, and actually, smaller. I think is it's definitely a quality over quantity thing. Which is how we've always approached it. But it is one of our top questions. So yeah, we just kind of wanted to give you I guess as an intro, talk about why it's important. But I think most people think it's important, otherwise they wouldn't be asking the question.
Yeah. So I guess to start, you know, and this is gonna be very similar whether you already have like a small group and you just want to like add on, you know, like you're like, oh dude, it's just me and one buddy. I'd like to get at least another guy, because capabilities, going back to that. But having a good understanding of what you want with the group of people, I think, is incredibly important. Like sitting down with either that friend or sitting down just by yourself, if you're all that there is currently, you're just one man armying around. And basically coming up with like, these are the types of men I want or people I want, and basically just jotting down kind of some of the stuff that we're going to go through here in a little bit, but jotting down like, okay, this is the type of people that I'm looking to get, because I'm going to jive better with that group. Yeah. And just kind of coming up with a standard for yourself. And it's not going to be perfect. Like, you're not going to have someone that just hits every check mark, but if they're hitting, you know, a good chunk of the check marks, it's like, okay, this is someone I can work with, you know? So, and obviously you got to get along with the person. Like, if they check every box, but you guys just like butt heads super hard, then it's probably not a good fit. So
yeah, it's at least not worth forcing, you know? Like, I don't think any relationship built off of like, well, we'll be able to fix this, you know, we're compatible, or like all this checks out, but like we don't get along, that'll work itself out later. Is a poor way to set up a relationship, especially something as important as this, because this should be viewed as something highly important. And I kind of want to start with that, like in that same vein of what you're talking about, Stephen. Like, this shouldn't be viewed in the light of, I want a shooting buddy or I want a gym buddy. It can start there and build off of that. And this is where I think you're talking about sitting down with somebody and coming up with like parameters. You know, the other thing I would say is come up with a mission statement. Like, what are you trying to do? And make sure that you and those other people, whether it's like one guy, it starts with one guy or whatever, or maybe it's just your family, coming up with like, hey, what do I want? Like, if we form a group, what's our goal with forming this group?
Yeah.
What are we wanting out of it? Is it accountability? Is it like, well, we want to be able to defend our community? Like, what is it? I think that's a huge portion of this whole structure. And you need to make sure that as you bring people in, they understand that, and they understand your expectations, and they understand that, oh, well, these guys they don't just go shooting every Saturday.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, well, I was kind of just wanting guys to shoot with, or like, oh, they don't just hit the gym, every day. And it's like, yeah, those are things you can do. I'm not saying that. Those are all things you should be doing, but that's not the goal of the group.
Yeah.
It's the goal of the group's bigger than that. So setting and and maybe that is the goal of the group, and that's okay if that's it. But you're gonna attract. You'll possibly attract a less committed type of person.
Yeah, if you
have shallow goals like that. And I'm not saying that, like if you do just want to start with like, hey, let's just start shooting together and grow together. Cool. Or whatever. But I think ultimately, like, the whole idea of having a group like this is kind of reflecting back to the original Minutemen. It's like, hey, we're living our lives. Let's help each other out a little bit. Because, like, for example, to use, and we're going to have to speak somewhat vaguely about the group we're involved with, because just for privacy and, our own security of that. But within our, it's no secret that we have a group of guys that we, rely on and help and train with and all that. And same, we're part of that. But for us, it's not just, yeah, let's go do this, let's go do that. It's very much like any one of those guys could call me at any point, be like, hey, I need help doing this. Could you help me? Yeah, I'll be there, and give me a few minutes and I'll be there.
Yeah.
Or, and it's happened before. It's like, hey, like, I got stuck. Like, I'm stuck in the snow. Can anybody come give me a hand? Like, immediate response. Yeah, I'll be there. I'm right down the road. I'll be there. It's more than, one thing that happens a lot too is, guys will be like, hey, I'm really feeling like catching up. Like, let's go. Anybody want to go get some coffee tomorrow morning? And like, in our conversation, you'll see people respond and be like, yep, yeah, I'll be there. I'll see you in the morning, or whatever. And it's not like, and then obviously we've got training stuff wrapped into all that too.
Yeah.
But it's building it. You're not just building a team, you're building a close knit community.
Yeah.
And, you start to meet each other's families and kids, and you get closer with them. And I mean, start to build basically a brotherhood of men. And I do kind of say men specifically. Does it have to be men? No, it does not. But I do personally believe that this whole idea is kind of a man's game. And I don't say that from a position of like misogyny, or like, I don't think men are necessarily like superior to women or anything like that. But I think fighting in general is something that men are more capable of doing.
Yeah.
I think mentally and physically, and even spiritually to some degree, I think men are better equipped in all three of those categories to stand in that responsibility where needed.
Yeah.
So that's just my opinion on it. But you can absolutely, that's not to say that women aren't included, because obviously
They very much are.
We all have wives, like in our group, everyone's married. So everyone's got wives, and they're obviously involved, They know what's going on. They have to. They're part of our, like my wife is she's my better side, she's my the opposite side of the same coin, if you will, So there's things that, if you've got kids and stuff like that, there's different responsibilities. And it also comes from a perspective of, I know I'm able to do things that I would never even want my wife to have to experience.
Yeah.
And some of that's experience I already have. Some of it is just a better grasp on the reality of some of these things. But yeah. So again, kind of bringing it back. It doesn't have to be, I say that to say it doesn't have to just be men, but I think generally for especially when you're wrapping in traditional families and stuff like that, which I think a lot of people will probably relate to, because I feel like that's something that I've seen a correlation between kind of this whole concept and people that value that kind of lifestyle. That's not going to be true across the board, obviously, but I've also noticed that there's a large influx of very young men getting into this idea, which is very encouraging to see. And I applaud you for already thinking in this way at such a young age. It's very easy to be self-important and like self-involved, and that's common. So to be thinking about a bigger idea, a bigger picture, and to be thinking about sharing that with others is something that's pretty unique at a young age, I would say.
Yeah.
So kudos to you if you're, in that 18 to 25 range and you're taking this stuff seriously. But especially that like 18 to 21, because those ages are tough to, you're in the I'm invincible, the world's for me mode,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I think it's important that you establish kind of your mission statement, your overall plan, your overall idea of what you want this group to be.
Yeah.
Even if it's just you, like if it's just you and you're like, man, I really need a group. It's just me. I'm into this stuff. And you're one of those people that you're like, I just don't even know where to go. That's step one. Figure out what you need.
Yeah.
You need to understand what you're trying to build before you start building it.
Yeah, and you don't have to have it all the way figured out. Like, I look back to our kind of the early stages of our business. We were super. We're still grinding super hard, trying to make this thing more and more. Trying to help more and more people. We really think that we kind of have a special business plan, and I feel like we can help a lot, whether it's through the podcast or through the business or through training or, retail, whatever it may be. But back when we first started, obviously you're coming from nothing. You're trying to build a name for yourself. You're super busy with that. So it's not like you have a ton of time to be, training like a ton, like as far as like we went to the range with a group of guys, and that's kind of where we started. Just going back to what you were saying, like if that's all you can do, then that's a start. You know what I mean? Maybe having some of that other stuff in the back of your head that you would like to implement later, and as long as everyone's tracking that's something that's a goal that you guys are trying to reach, then I don't think that's really a problem. Like, especially for younger people, they're just, the younger you are, the more busy you are as far as schedule, because you're usually working long hours, or at least I was when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still young, but I mean younger than, like, in my 20s, I was working super long hours, construction, and just working hard. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if that's all you can do, that's all you can do. And just try to do the best you can do with that. But I think setting goals, though, like, hey, we would like to do this at some point. Like, and we do that still to this day. Like, hey, what do you guys think about maybe trying to push into this kind of area? Yeah, I'd be interested in doing that. Okay. Let's try to make that happen at some point. We don't have to do it like right now, but let's slowly start adding that to like maybe some of the, either with, if you have to get gear in order to do it, or, you know, whatever, start researching things or whatever it may be. But I think having goals to improve upon is important, as well as having just an overall mission statement from the get-go.
Yeah. And I think the more, I mean, the more you think about that, and the more you really soul search, if you will, on that, and figure out, you know, like I said, if it's just you, or if it's you and like one guy or two guys right now, and you all, let's say you do all go shooting together all the time, and you're like, hey, I think it's time to take this to the next step, next level. The better, or the more thought you put into that, the better. And like you're saying, Steven, I mean, you're going to figure a lot of that out as you go, because, you know, you'll build experience and you'll build perspective, and as you do things together, you'll realize like, oh, and then it's pretty natural too to start with things that are more fun, like, oh, let's go do, you know, I don't know, there's things, that's all subjective, so whatever you're super into, but
yeah,
but then you realize like, oh, realistically, this stuff might be more practical to work on together, and so on and so forth. But like the example you used, you know, way back when, all those years ago, we had a group of guys that we shot with all the time, and that's kind of was our first group, if you will. But some of those guys have carried over, and some of them haven't. Yeah. So I think there's some reality there, where it's like some guys did want to move on to the kind of the bigger picture, but some guys were like, nah, I was just kind of wanting to shoot, you know, bro out, you know, and that's cool. And you know, we're still friends with those guys and stuff, and you know, anytime it works, we all shoot and stuff together. But I think there just becomes a realization of like, you know, commitment level. And I think it's easier to commit to things when you understand what, like, fully what you're committing to. So yeah.
And you view the importance of it. If you don't view it as important, you're not going to ever commit to it. So
yeah.
But yeah, I guess let's get into, once you get that figured out, like, then another huge question is like, how do you even find anyone? And we kind of got into this with Ty. When we brought Ty on to the podcast, we were talking about, you know, meeting people, and sometimes you got to get out of your comfort zone. Like, you can't just go to like we brought up, like, going to shooting competitions and like all this stuff. It's like, you can't just go to those things and expect you're just going to come out with like best friends ever. You got to actually like put in the work. It like reminds me of like the little kids at preschool, you know, like when they're like trying to become friends with each other. And it's always the kids that just does not give a crap that ends up being friends with everyone, because they're just like, whoa, and just like storming around, like storming the castle of the preschool. And you're just like, dude, this little kid just does not give a crap. But it's because there's no like social, like, that little kid's super confident in who he is, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why he's just like, oh, all the kids are like, oh, I guess this kid's like who I want to be, like, hang out with, because this kid's just like smashing around.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be like this social butterfly in order to pull it off, but you're going to have to put in some work. Like, if you're a little bit more like me, you're kind of introverted, don't really like to talk to people. I'm terrible when it comes to this kind of stuff, because I'm just like, dude, I'm good at like talking and stuff, but I'm like, I don't know, I don't really like to. So if I have to, I will, but for the most part, I'm kind of like, I'm pretty reserved. So, which you can find people that way too. I'm not saying you can't, but if you just think that you're going to go like, I've been going to all these things, I'm trying to find people and I just can't. It's like, dude, are you actually like talking to anyone? Like, are you trying to meet anyone new, or are you just like going to it? And you just like that dude in the corner. Like the guy that goes to the prom without someone to dance with, and they're just sitting in the corner hoping that a girl comes up and picks them. It's like, dude, you got to go in there and like
Yeah.
get shut down a couple times or something in order to make it happen.
And that definitely doesn't mean you're walking around like, I'm forming a team. Hey, I'm forming a team.
No, and that's not how it would be. So yeah, let's backtrack a little bit. You definitely want to go in like you're not even doing that. Like you're not even letting that even be known.
Yeah.
You're just going in and you're putting your feelers out.
You're just meeting people.
Yeah,
you're networking.
Yeah, you're meeting people.
Mm-hmm.
If it never turns into anything too crazy, at least you still have someone that like might be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Someone you go play golf with or something. I don't know. Like, it is what it is. It's like, it doesn't always work out.
I mean, I would say for searching for individuals, candidates, if you will, especially
Sounds
this is
super gay, dude.
Yeah. This is more
a recruit.
Yeah. Oh no. No, this is definitely more for the person that's literally like, and we get these a lot. We get a lot of people that reach out. They're like, I just don't even know where to find people that would think this way. Like I have buddies, and stuff, but they don't prioritize any of this. And there's two ways to look at that. One, it's like you could start trying to influence them, and and the ones that might seem like they're a little bit more like they could potentially be interested in that, you could start there. But I would say in a weird way, it's like, man, it's almost easier to find those quality people that are going to value at least aspects of what you're trying to do. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to go look for people that are doing things that you also value. So the shooting range, the gym, like if you're going to the gym a lot, it's like you're going to meet people there that.
And gym is wrapped up in, it could be anywhere from lifting weights to Brazilian jiu-jitsu to
right. Yeah.
Like gym is kind of just a blanket statement, but
so is the range, that could be shooting competitions. It could be, just literally going and zeroing your rifle and you got your yellow tinted glasses on and you're just, no, I'm just kidding. No, but you're whatever, the shooting range, like church, if you're part of a church community, finding people there, you could even look at your occupation, like going to work, if that's something that you value. And depending on that, I mean, those might be people you avoid depending on what you do. But
depending on where you work too, it's very dependent. Like if it's, I don't know, like it depends. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you're like a EMT paramedic, you might have some solid dudes that you work with. That's got a good pool of individuals.
Mm-hmm.
But not every job's like that. You may just have a bunch of just mouth breathers and just I don't know.
Yeah.
Blobs of just matter. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's where you got to start. You got to go, and it doesn't have to be like gun related or like fitness related, or even faith-based related like church or it could be, I mean, it could be as simple as like the bowling alley, dude. Like if you bowl, it's like, man, you might just have like some solid dude out there that's just, dude, just dropping it.
Yeah.
But, so I think you can find them pretty much anywhere. You just got to be willing to put in a little bit of work, I think. And this whole idea is becoming more and more popular, which is cool. So,
Yeah, I agree. I think, this is definitely the hardest part. But it's the most important part because like we said before, quality over quantity, like focus on solid people that you really get along with. I think it's really important that you seek out people that you enjoy being around. That's just going to make it way easier. And sometimes those don't coincide. Like you might really enjoy being around some people that just are never going to be into this stuff. And cool. Like that's a friend, I mean, you can still have friends in this whole thing. it's great.
No more friends.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to have.
But it's great if those friends, can be a part of your coordination in your group. But what's even better is if you build good friendships with guys that, you found for this intention to begin with.
Yeah.
And that's harder to do, but it's absolutely possible. We get asked all the time, like, how did we do it? Well, we kind of have a, what is that? That was crazy. I don't know if anybody else heard that. We just heard the non-human biologics in our headsets. But so sorry if it probably didn't get picked up on the podcast, but
probably not.
There it is again, though. What is that? Are we getting tapped?
We're getting tapped into. They're finding us.
Random. Anyways. And by the way, we know, like, we've had people reach out and be like, yeah, sometimes your podcast glitches out. We're tracking. We know it does. We don't know why it does it. So we're not going to fix it. So deal with it. Sometimes there's just going to be I don't even know how to mimic it, but
hey, if you know what's causing that issue,
yeah,
go ahead and email us at whatever our email is. It's something different now.
minutemen.initiative@gmail.com.
Sick. We actually have a podcast email now.
We do. We've got some podcast content coming out soon on that note. So keep an eye on the horizon. Some of you have already found it. I don't want to say any more on it, but if you found it, but nothing's there yet. I'm going to keep it super vague. Why? It's an Instagram. I don't know why I'm keeping it vague. It makes no sense. We have an Instagram. You can go follow it. Stuff's coming soon. There's nothing there now. It's really funny. I made it, and I was like, I'll just kind of make this as a placeholder for now.
Yeah.
I'll kind of keep it tucked away. We won't really log into it right now. And then followers just started finding it. And I was just like, how are they finding it? And it's like, no, it's not ready yet. I haven't done anything to it. Like, I was planning on getting some stuff like posted in there and making it all look good and getting all the, everything, like the highlight section all situated and organized. And then all of a sudden it's like, so-and-so followed so-and-so. And I'm just like, no. So I don't know if it's getting recommended to people like, oh, this person follows this, or I don't know, but cool. If you found it, good for you.
You get nothing.
And yeah, you win
our
brownie
praise.
points.
Dude.
But stuff's coming soon, so we're gonna start doing some more podcast specific content, and we'll do like Q&A stuff on there probably, and there'll be good stuff happening on there. So I'm excited about that. Where was I going with that? How did that come up?
We're talking about non-human biological. I don't even remember how we got there.
Well, that started happening. We started hearing the in our headset. That's what it sounded like, in case you wanted to know what it sounded like if it didn't come through on the podcast. But we were talking about something else before we got to that point. Oh, well, I was mentioning the whole glitchiness in some of our episodes. I think it's like how it's our software we're recording on. I think just malfunctions sometimes.
Yeah, it's my old computer.
But yeah, it doesn't show up when we're editing. It doesn't show up in any of that. And then it's something to do with like, I think it actually happens when you master it, when you finalize the file. So there's a little bit of a corruption that happens. So I think it's only happened on like a handful of our episodes, like 4 or 5 maybe. But anyways, sorry about that. We don't know what's causing it. And so yeah.
But yeah, how to find people. We'll get back into that. That's kind of the hard part, like what you were saying. It's not something. So this at this stage of the process of trying to see if this is going to work out, you don't have to be like, I don't want to say that you don't have to worry about like forcing it necessarily, because you're not even close to the point where you're going to be like, yep, he's one of my guys. Like, we're going to be doing this now.
Yeah.
We are super tight. out of nowhere. But
that happens though.
it does happen occasionally, and
it's
usually
rare,
that's kind of sweet when it does happen. Like we've had that happen before. It's just like, man, this is just
there's some people you meet and you're just like, we're gonna be buddies for a long time, and it's so weird when that happens. But
did we just become best friends?
yeah, it's literally like that. It's really cool when that happens. I don't know, and I'm sure people can relate to that. But there's just been some people that I've met. It's weird when it happens to both of us. Yeah, there's been times that it happens to both Steven and I. Like that person, after the person leaves, we like look at each other and we're like, "That dude was awesome," you know?
Yeah.
And then it just kind of works out, but that's very rare, I think, to have happen. But
dude, yeah.
Oh, that's what we were talking about. So how we find people specifically is what we're getting into for a second. And I was going to say that we kind of have a unique position, I think, because of the podcast and our store,
our social media.
Our social media. So people kind of seek us out. Like people, like there's a lot of people that come into the shop and float I'm looking for a group out there, you know, and they're kind of, you can tell they're kind of trying to, you know, like see kind of like put in their resume, so to speak. And that's awesome. And, you know, well, I'm trying to figure out the right, like, we pay attention to that. Like, don't think we're just like ignoring people. You know, if you're someone that's done that and you listen, like it's been taken under advisement, you know. Dude. But there's what?
Just so douchey.
No, I'm actually not trying to be douchey. I'm like, there's a lot of people that do that, and I think some of it, I think it's done in the. I think most of the people that do that, it's actually done from a position of like, hey, do you have any info for me, like how I can pair up with people? I don't think it's like I'm trying to pair up with you, but there's definitely some of that. And cool, like I you know, we're just very slow to pick people.
Yeah, which I think a lot of people should be.
We're very, very slow. So it's, you know, I'm not, I didn't mean to sound douchey. Like literally what I'm trying to say is like, there are individuals that have come in here and been that forward that I'm like, sweet, you know, we'll have to get to know each other better kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or they've been more passive about it, but it's like, and you know, and there's a portion in your mind that's like, cool, you know, and that person is remembered and jotted away, and it's like we're gonna hopefully get to know each other better, and because it should never be just like you know, I heard that you guys train together with a group of guys, you know, like I'm saying for if you start building a group, you know, and this kind of somehow it comes up in some place, it's like it should never just be like, yeah, come on out, like let's just integrate you and just go for it, you know. Like it should absolutely, I think, be a very methodical and intentional process.
Yeah, kind of going back to that quantity over quality, or quality over quantity. I just did what you always do, dude.
Yeah, dude.
But like, you know, yeah, you could just have the fattest group of just individuals, just so thick with numbers.
Yeah.
But do you actually have a bunch of guys that are they going to show up to every event? Are they going to actually put in the work? Are they going to purchase the gear? Are they going to do all this and all that? And
yeah, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with it.
So it's kind of like, it's one of those deals. Like, if you can have a huge group and they can do all that, then good for you. That's sweet.
Yeah.
But I think more than likely that's not going to be the case. So
yeah. And then if you do start finding people that, you know, you are getting along with them really good, you think your ideals match up. Again, I want to come back to that, like ideology is, you know, and we'll get more into that, I think, too.
Yeah.
But ideology is a big deal, and kind of perspective and, you know, different things like that, which we'll start to break down. Basically, right now, we're going to start breaking down like what we look for in
Yeah.
people and what we think works really good for building something.
And before we get into that, you may be asking, like, yeah, so you get to meet the person. You kind of like, okay, yeah, you guys kind of hit it off. It's like, I'm like, oh yeah, this guy's super cool.
Yeah.
Like, we kind of have some of the same hobbies. Super nice guy. Blah blah blah. But it's like, how do you go from there? How do you actually learn to get to know the person? Well, you got to actually. We kind of joke around about talking at the courting process, but
that's what we call it.
And I put up air quotations when I said that because it's kind of gay. But
you're gay.
but yeah. So the courting process, basically, that's just getting together. Whether it's sometimes for me and Jacob, we'll go hang out with the person together, or sometimes we'll go individually, or and it could be just grabbing coffee in the morning, or going to the range together, or just anything. It's like kind of start figuring out what they enjoy, and then also like you start learning about each other because you're just talking and you're finding out things about them and their family and some of the just backgrounds and stuff like that. So that's where you start kind of being able to piece together some of those characteristics so that you may be like, okay, yeah, this guy is going to fit really well, or yeah, this probably isn't going to work out.
Yeah.
And if it's not going to work out, it's not like you just completely chop that person off. Like, obviously, if you've had some sort of relationship, then obviously you can continue on that, but just maybe not in this mission's role. But
yeah.
But yeah, so that's how you start figuring out some of the key points that we're about to get into, as far as like things that we think you should prioritize while you're meeting people and getting to know people and whatnot. But
yeah, and this recipe, if you will, is very based on what we've tried to do and kind of what we continue to do. And I kind of want to preface this whole thing by saying, and I don't say this in like a boastful way, but our group is very good. We have like super solid people in it. And the really cool thing about it is we all like each other.
Yeah.
There's no, like, yeah, there's sometimes some people like butt heads a little bit, but we all, I think, genuinely love each other. Which is pretty cool. Like we're fortunate enough to be involved with a bunch of guys that value true brotherhood, and that's something that I continue to see. So it is definitely something that is, it's definitely something that's pretty unique. But I think it has to do with kind of this process that we've gone through. So I think if you follow these steps, like it's not the end all be all, but this is how we've done it. And that's kind of the question we've gotten a lot. Like, how do you form a team? Well, these next things are pretty integral to that.
Yeah. So pretty much just get to know them, go through the process of meeting with them multiple times. And this is going to it's going to be very dependent on the individual, how many times you feel like you need to meet them. Like we were saying before, sometimes you just click, and some people just are very like they're very open book, and not like they're just spreading information everywhere, but I'm saying like you learn more about that person very quickly because they're not as reserved to be like holding stuff back, you know what I mean? So like we've experienced that. Like someone that's a little bit more like myself, probably gonna take a little bit more time to get to know, because it's like kind of have to work to even get me talking. So versus someone like you might be a little bit easier to get to know, because it's like you talk more.
Yeah.
So but yeah, as far as getting into some of the things, some of the big things you need to hit, obviously this has been made out to be like the most common thing in the world, and I don't know if it's social media that's making it seem this way, but the intelligence gathering as far as like figuring out if this person is someone that actually can be trusted and not just like, I don't know. There's a lot of talk of like guys getting planted and things like that. So it's
like the whole like he's a Fed thing.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I put this in here because I think it is important to a certain degree.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't think it's as common as some of these people make it out to be.
Yeah,
I don't think you got very many feds just cruising around in small towns or even in big cities like that are just like trying to infiltrate these groups. But I'm not saying that it can't happen. So getting to know them, figuring out if it's like, I mean, this is going to be kind of up to you. This is going to be kind of a common sense thing. Like, I can't sit here and tell you how to go about doing that. But if there's like lots of red flags,
yeah,
you may just want to bail out.
Yeah, err on the side of caution. If somebody's got a lot of red flags, even if it's not in that vein, just in general, like I would say, you know, because basically the next step we're talking about is like intelligence gathering on that individual.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of weird because it's like, yeah, I'm going to get to know this person, spend time with them. Now I'm going to research them, you know, and it's not like you got to hire a private investigator. But unless that's what you want to do, but I think they should be somewhat willing to tell you about their personal lives. Like a big red flag to me would be someone that was overly private or dodgy. Like, yeah, you know, well, I'm trying to, you know, are you married? And it's like, yeah, I've been, you know, how long? Oh, a while. Like, oh, okay. Like, you know, where'd you guys meet? Oh, just in my past, you know, like stuff like that. It's like, what the, like, you know, regular conversations.
Dude, that is like so many red flags popping up.
So just someone that's really dodgy with information, or somebody that you notice, like, pay attention when people talk. Someone that's changed details. Yeah. You know, like simple little details have suddenly shifted, you know, like, oh, I thought you said you grew up in North Carolina. It's like, well, I did, but I actually grew up in Georgia. It's like, oh, it's like, yeah, well, actually, I was actually an adult in North Carolina. Like, some people just make mistakes. So I'm not saying like hyper focus on like, wait a second, like you blinked 4 times when you said that word, you know, and like stuff like that. But just pay attention. And if it's things that aren't making a lot of sense, you know, then maybe it's not something that's going to work out. But yeah, the whole, it's very, very, the whole, like, there's agents out there trying to integrate into your group and, like, you know, all that. That does happen. I mean, it absolutely does happen. And there are, you know, operative plants that even, like, there's been some that are on social media that are like running, you know, Modern Minuteman style pages, and they're actually working for, you know, the FBI or the CIA or something like that. You know, that stuff happens. So don't be naive. But I think going into every situation, every relationship building opportunity of like, is this guy a federal agent, is a little bit weird.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be a red flag person before you know it. So, but I think as a whole, intelligence gathering on that person and who they actually are. And that's something that's just going to naturally happen through the courting process. Like, as you're getting to know them, as you're just, what are you doing? You're literally building a relationship. Like, that's the thing. You don't want to look at it like you're using people. You don't want to always go into every potential good relationship with like, how can I utilize this person in my team? You know?
Yeah.
Like, you should be building a relationship. And as you build relationships, you figure out if you can or can't trust someone. And it's the same thing. And that's why I think this does take time, because these things do take time. Now, like Steven said, aspects of it might move quicker, or some relationships are built faster than others. That doesn't mean that you abandon all the ones that take a little more time. Like sometimes those ones built over long periods of time end up being the strongest ones.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the intelligence gathering side of things, it's really important. they should be, as you get to know them more, you should both be more transparent with one another naturally. It shouldn't be something that's always kind of a pain to pull out of them. And, and it's not like,
and also they're getting to know you too. So it's not like why can't I think of the word? No, dude. An interview. It's not like an interview process. It's like you're just going to hang out, dude.
Yeah.
You're having fun.
Yeah.
And that's what's great about it. You can have fun with it. And even if it doesn't work out like what I originally said, it's still like someone that you can go have fun with. Like,
right.
It's not like it's just like, oh, well, because that kind of goes back to that whole mentality of what you were talking about where you're almost just looking for someone to use. Like, if you just end up just like, oh, yeah, that was just a big waste of my time, then yeah, if that's the mentality you're going to have, then yeah, it probably kind of was a waste of your time. But I don't think you should have that mentality from the get-go. I think it should be, relationships are a relationship. That can still be a resource down the line regardless if you're going to think in that vein. But I'm just saying, like, you want to have, like, I don't know. Me personally, like, I don't know. You can kind of go down that rabbit hole for a long time, but
yeah. But yeah, now I will say that as far as like people trying to undermine or infiltrate your community, I'll use that and be a little more vague with it because it might not necessarily be a group, but it might be viewed as more of a community, like a close-knit community. That can happen beyond just like you're the federal guy that's that it can happen far beyond that. It can be people within your local community that for whatever reason wanna, like, they're maybe not out to get you, but they're want to keep tabs on you. It sounds weird, but that stuff actually does happen. So you need to be careful. You need to be smart. I think as you're going throughout this process, it's important to maintain a level of operational security. Like I would not recommend going into all these situations. Kind of goes back to the beginning when I was like, you don't walk around and say, I'm building a team, And this is something that when Steven and I are getting to know people, we don't outright, tell them like, hey, this is what is happening. We're very nonchalant about it. And then it comes up later when it sounds like it's something we want to offer, like, would you like to be involved in this? This is kind of what we do. This is what it is, and it's that's the other thing too, is that I don't think, this is kind of back at the mission statement side a little bit, but I think there's also this false narrative that people think you have to be like really sneaky and secretive because it's like you shouldn't be doing anything wrong or illegal.
No.
Like getting together with a group of guys and training with one another, whether it's fitness, shooting, whatever, like emergency response, search and rescue, like aid. These are all good things. They're great things. And being ready to stand up and defend a community against enemies, foreign and domestic, is not only not illegal, it's constitutional. It's protected in our Constitution. So, like a pretty cringy word, which I think wrongfully so, is militia. And I think that's a word that we need to reintroduce into our accepted vocabulary. Because the right to a well-regulated militia is literally in our Constitution. And if that's, what you're forming, I think it got a bad name because you've got some people that were forming quote-unquote militias under, like, negative pretenses,
almost like gangs.
Or like terrorist style organizations. And those exist. And those still exist, and they will continue to exist.
Careful if you're...
It's the same thing as, we look at the Second Amendment. the right to bear arms, that's that part of the Second Amendment. There's people that are going to use that right to bear arms in an illegal capacity.
Yeah.
They're going to run around and do gang violence or, like murder people. There's going to be people that use that right and abuse it, and then use those tools afforded to them by that right. As far as the law goes, I believe your right to self-defense is inalienable. It has nothing to do with the actual Constitution. Like you have that right as a human. But anyways, like beyond that, there's obviously people that abuse it. Same goes for the well-regulated militia part of the Second Amendment. Like people are going to abuse it. But I think we've done ourselves a disservice by just avoiding using that term. And I think people view it very negatively because the community that believes in that concept has shunned it so much.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, I think going back to the intelligence gathering side of things, that's going to be something that you're going to have to think about. Like you're going to have to figure out a way that you want to, I guess, as you're vetting someone, you're going to eventually have to start to introduce those ideas and like what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So I think having that overall mentality is important. That should be flushed out in your concept and your whole mission statement. But it doesn't need to be, going back to like the secretive side, there's like this whole push of, like, well, no one should know. And it's like, you know what? I think we need to normalize having, like groups of men that get together, hold each other accountable, and help their community when they need help. Yeah. So,
and I think going back, you kind of made me think of something that's not really in the outline, but if you're an individual that's kind of getting integrated, is that the right word? Integrated into a group, like you're not forming the group. You're like maybe
integrated.
The guy. Yeah, you're maybe the guy that's getting kind of courted. You can do the same, look for the same kind of stuff for like whoever you're meeting with. That like, hey, would you like to? This is kind of what we do. Would you like to come do this with us, kind of thing? And if that's something you're looking to do, just make sure you don't just dive into a group of guys that are doing some shady activities.
Yeah.
Because that's obviously pretty dangerous too. So be looking for the same kind of characteristics, red flags, some of the, like I said, it's not just an interview style for the person that's getting brought in. It's also an interview style for the people bringing in as well, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up because we obviously built this outline and prepared for this episode from the perspective of building a team, since that's like kind of our experience. But for integrating into one, which is absolutely an option.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're listening and you may be getting accepted into one, you should 100% have strong principles and absolute standards that cannot be broken. I think that's why, having a moral constitution, and having strong and unwavering principles is super important as an individual. If you have to violate any of those principles as an individual to be a part of a group, then it's not worth being a part of.
Yeah.
You should never change yourself and change your beliefs to have a relationship with anybody. And I'll take that all the way back to, we'll give you some almost 14 years of marriage and advice here coming from me. A lot of people get married with and make that mistake. So for you young men listening that might not have wives yet, if you have to violate or betray any of your principles or morals or your faith or anything like that to be with somebody, then that person is not worth being with. And that absolutely translates to,
it's weirdly a lot of the stuff we cover would be the same for like if you're as weird as that is, if you're marrying someone. So you
kind of are. I mean, you have to, because of this whole concept, it has to be somebody that you are going to trust, not just individually, but trust with your family.
Yeah.
Like if something happens and you die, you now have to know that those men are going to have your family's best interests in mind.
Yeah.
So that is how deep this goes. And if you're listening and you're like, man, I don't know if I want something that deep. It's like, well, then you're not ready yet, you know? I mean,
yeah.
But this is something this is a community style that our country was built on. So I think it's something that we need to go back to. We're very far away from it, and I think that's intentional. And I don't want to go down Alex Jones is coming out, but but it's I don't want to go too far down this, but I think it's very intentional and by design that the traditional family and like family communities, like community events that are more family friendly and stuff. Like you hear that family friendly a lot. It's like that used to not even be a part of our vocabulary. That used to be the standard. It used to just be like if you did something that was not family friendly at like a community event, you would be destroyed. Like you'd have like kind of going back to the Jason Aldean song a little bit.
Dude, Aldean, dude.
Who is
Aldean? Yeah, that's it. But did you add it in an A or something?
Oh, did I? Jason Aldean. I don't know. I don't listen to country music.
I know you don't.
I listen to music.
That's why I'm surprised you even understood the reference. But
yeah, but
it's the number one song right now, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
Well, I'm just saying it's actually pretty cool in a way.
I'll have to check it out.
But it's very like.
I'm just a low-key metalhead over here, dude.
I'm a metalhead too.
I actually listen to a lot of different music. I listen to all kinds. If it's good, I'll listen to it. I like funky stuff too. I'll get down on some funky stuff. Anyways, we're getting off track here. But yeah, going back to that analogy you made, like back in the day, if you did do stuff like that in a small town, you'd get smashed. Like
I think you still would. Still to this day, somewhat.
It depends. Yeah,
it depends. I think if it's justified, like.
It depends on what it was, but
you come up and punch a cop or spit on a cop in a small town. I'm pretty sure if the right guy's sitting there, he's going to smack the crap out of that guy. Like that's just the way it is. In the city, maybe not, but
or like if you try to do anything to kids, like mess with anybody's kids, you're going to get destroyed.
Yeah, because there's plenty of video proof that happens. But
yeah, but anyways, what I was building to with that is that.
But yeah, it's not like what it was, I don't think.
No, yeah. I mean, the traditional family values are being eroded away in society, and I truly believe it's because it's so strong, and this whole concept we're talking about is largely gone. But it's not completely gone, and I think it's actually surging. I think there's, like I said, there's a lot of younger men and women that are interested in this concept. Like I'm seeing so many people now that are more like young people that are like
farming.
Doing like
that's the thing,
sustainable agriculture.
Dude, that is
they're
the
like
thing.
Making sourdough bread and like I see all these accounts.
Yeah,
and it's really cool and they're young, and then I'll notice like, oh, they're like 20 and 22, like 22 and 20 years old, or whatever, and it's like that's really cool. And I don't know. I might be too far removed from it, but it feels like that old like early 20s like club dating culture is starting to die out slightly.
Yeah.
Because it went through we're like still. I think it's, and when I say die out, I shouldn't say die out. I think it's starting to fade, is what I would say. It's still very prevalent.
Yeah.
People are still very selfish and self-centered, but. I say all this to say that the reason there's so much negativity surrounding this whole idea, and and there's so much societal like cringe
pushback,
that's attached to having a group like this, is because of how powerful it actually is.
Yeah.
So yeah, ignore all that but pursue good people. So kind of coming back, or I know we kind of got off topic a little bit. So yeah, intelligence gathering, do your due diligence, pay attention, have conversations, take note of what people are saying. Like, I don't literally mean write it down. I mean, you can, I guess, but that would be kind of weird. You're hanging out. Hey, let's go to the pool hall together. And then you're just jotting down everything the person says. It's probably not going to fly.
Yeah.
But
it's kind of a fine line of being like, you got to trust the person, but you also got to like, I don't know, man. I can't explain it. Like, I'm a little bit paranoid naturally as a person.
Yeah, you are. Well, we both kind of are, but
I'd say
you're worse.
But the problem is, I work in the prison system, so I just my trust in humanity is slightly dwindled in that environment.
Yeah,
but so it's like, man, I don't know. I think that's why it's kind of good to have like maybe a balance, and if you can do it, that's a good way to do it. Is like, if you can have more than one person's opinion with an individual, that's a good way to do it as well. So that's not always an option. So I'm not going to sit here and say that's the way to do it, because we've even not done it that way sometimes. So, yeah. But anyways, so you're starting to get to know them. You've done some intelligence gathering. You kind of started to get into it, like finding out like kind of their character traits, like, are they a moral person? Are they loyal, hardworking, dedicated? Are they humble? Things like that, obviously they don't have to have all of it. Like, some guys that are pretty like type A personalities are going to be a little bit more, prideful of a person. They're going to be a little bit, but they're also going to be kind of like go-getters. So that's not a problem.
Be really assertive, and
as long as they have, I guess. Yeah, dude, I think morality is a huge one. Like, obviously we have a podcast on morality. So if your morals and their morals kind of jive together, then that's already like, that's a good step, I think.
Yeah. I think it's a pivotal step. Like, that's like, and you can tell. I mean, if you've got, like, if you're hanging out with somebody and they start bragging about like cheating on their wife or something like that, it's like, done, son. Like, that would be, for me, that would be, it'd be over. Like, that might sound so small to somebody, like other people. And like, really, over that? It's like, yeah, because there's so many things in this list that you just gave, like being faithful, morality, humility, dedication, commitment. All of those are betrayed by someone that cheats on their spouse.
Yeah.
They're willing to cross all those boundaries.
Yeah.
So no, you're no longer a candidate. Somebody that brags about, like, hey, I went to the strip club and did this and that. Like, yeah, that's a no-go. Like, you need to be looking for people that are trying to
better themselves. I'm not saying they don't have to have like a perfectly clean past. Like, we've all done
dumb stuff in our
past. Especially as younger people. But if they're bragging about it, it doesn't say that they're embarrassed by the act. You know what I mean? Like, if they're like going out and saying, I did this, that. It's like, dude, you trash.
Yeah.
Get out of here. But, so I think that's I think it's very pivotal as well. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's okay, we've checked the box there. We can kind of move on to the next thing, and obviously just because their morals are solid doesn't mean you're going to get along with them. So like, if there's certain traits that they have, it's like, dude, we are going to butt heads hard, dude, and I just don't see this working out, then obviously it's probably not worth investing a whole bunch of time into it. But
and take these things and apply them to, if you're someone that's wanting to be like accepted into a group, or you're trying to like find a group that already exists, apply these same things.
Yeah, it's the same exact. That's what I was trying to say. It's like some of the things we're about to go over. It's you just reverse the roles, and it's going to be applicable.
Because Steven earlier brought up the whole, like, you don't want to get one brought into like an actual gang type situation where you're now being asked to do illegal or like very gray area things. that would mean, and that would come back again to that mission statement. And that's something too, like if you get to the point where someone's like, hey, so we've got a group, we're getting along really good, I'd like you to meet some of them, like if you ask them, that's awesome, man, like I'm really excited to hear that, what would you say your mission statement is as a group? And they don't know, that's okay if they don't know, but be like, well, what, like try to summarize like what your main idea is. I think that would be a really good way to do a little bit of like one, intelligence gathering, and two, figure out some character things about that group of people.
Yeah.
Like if they're just like, well, we're just kind of like, we're just kind of gonna be ready. And it's like, okay, ready for what? Because that could mean a lot of different things. Are we, if a natural disaster happens, are we just kind of like standing around our property with rifles slung, or are we going to go out and like pull people out of rubble?
Yeah.
Or like, okay, if there's a food shortage, are we going to band together as a group and go steal food from people? Or are we going to actually have enough surplus that like be prepared
be
enough
actively working on
that we can go help people and like save, go offer like,
services as far as
offer supplies, like obviously coordinated supplies to people, so things like that. It's like what the overall idea should be there, and that's a good place to find some red flags. And as much as you want to be a part of something bigger than yourself, if it betrays any of your traditional or any of your personal principles or your moral constitution as an individual, then that's not worth it, and never sacrifice that. And I want to just say that again. The key characteristics in a person, like the morality side, are they able to commit? Are they hardworking? All the things that we're talking about. This is one of the I would say for me, at least when I'm meeting people, this is like a make or break portion.
Yeah.
What?
Nothing.
Okay.
I think it directly affects the cohesiveness of the group in general. So you're not just thinking about, that's another thing that we should probably get into. You're not just thinking about how well the person's going to jive with you. Like you're thinking about, if you already have people within the group, you got to think about their characteristics as well.
Yeah.
Is this person going to jive with the group as an overall thing, which that gets kind of difficult because you don't really know until you know, kind of.
Yeah.
You can kind of speculate like, oh, maybe these guys are going to butt heads a little bit, but sometimes they just end up being like best friends. It's like, like if, it goes two ways, and you see it with marriages a lot. So we'll use that as an example.
Yeah.
You have two people that get married that are complete opposites and they get along super well.
Yeah.
And so you would think, well, maybe that's the recipe. And then sometimes you see like a husband and wife that are literally identical to each other, but somehow it just works. And it's just like, they're just like two, like just absolute spazzes together. And you're just like, how is this working? Like, But I mean, it just happens, like same thing for building your group. Sometimes you're going to have like some of those type A personalities and you're like, man, it's either going to go one of two ways. They're either going to be like kind of motivate each other and boost each other, or they're just going to be constantly at each other like two rams just smashing each other's heads into each other.
That definitely can happen.
So that's where we kind of talk about it later, but that's where maybe having times where other group members are able to meet some of these people is kind of an important step, and that would be kind of farther along into it, I would think. But obviously it's very dependent. But other than like characteristics, as far as like individual characteristics, obviously experiences of the individual is important. This doesn't mean that you have to go out and find like nothing but just SF, just dudes. Like, I got nothing but Navy SEALs and Green Berets, dude, in my group. That's probably not going to happen unless you just...
Yeah, and I don't think it necessarily would be good. I think it's important to have guys that have
varying backgrounds. Yeah. So I'm not saying that. I mean, if you jive with guys that are like that, then and it works out, sweet.
Yeah,
go for it. But having, prior military experience, that's not a bad thing to have. Depending, as long as that person's head's in the right place, like they don't just think that like, oh yeah, I've been there, done that, I can do anything and everything. And it's like, whoa, dude, like, yeah, you're sick, but hold on a second.
Yeah, which a lot of this is going to be because, as we start talking about some of these experiences, we're going to list things that we think are valuable because they are. But, and there may be some listeners, there may be a little bit of like pushback while they're listening, thinking like, oh, like, why would I be looking for people with backgrounds necessarily? Well, remember, you've already vetted them up to this point. So they have really good individual characteristics. And so one of the ones we mentioned was humility. So if you have somebody like, if you've made it this far and then, you get somebody that's like, well, I'm tracking everything because I was in the military, and like, yeah, dude, I was in a striker brigade, so I know everything. And you're just like, what in the world? Like, you'll figure that out before you get that far.
Yeah.
Like you'll be like, yeah, this guy's random.
But I guess on the other side of that, like with that type of person comes individual experiences that maybe someone else doesn't have that they can share.
Yeah.
And usually if it is a good person as far as their characteristics checked out, they're going to be willing to share that information.
Yeah, exactly.
And help, deliver information to the best of their ability.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they're not going to know everything, but they may know something really, really well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You got military, you got law enforcement. Same thing with law enforcement. They have some things that maybe don't quite check out as well sometimes. I've done some research as far as like you kind of get a feeler for like different backgrounds, like what that brings. Obviously law enforcement are very they're very indoctrinated into the way they do things, and maybe that's not necessarily like how you necessarily want to do it for the Minuteman mission, but I think that they have a lot of good traits as well that come with them as well. Obviously they're if they're a good law enforcement agent, they're a service or a servant of the public already, so they're they've already put themselves in that position. More than likely they could go get a job that pays a lot more, but yet they still chose to do that job. That's a lot of people hate them for it, and it's like they're already taking that burden on for themselves. So it's like that's a pretty impressive thing from the get-go. Paramedics, EMTs, obviously bring it whole medical side of it. They're also a public servant, so that's a cool job to look into. Doctors, nurses, things along those lines. Anything from, construction, like, dude, we talk about it all the time, the importance of being able to just build stuff. Yeah. Which we'd love to do a podcast on because it would just be a sweet podcast. But, dude, building stuff within your community is incredibly important. If you're talking about natural disasters, like, let's rebuild our community. Perfect example right now, obviously, because everyone's using it, is Ukraine. It's like, dude, cities are absolutely demolished. I mean, how good would it be to have, like, even though they're getting all bought up by fuel or oil companies or whatever, and that's super shady, but
the whole thing's shady, but anyways, the concept's there.
The concept's there. So like rebuilding your community. So I think there's a lot of backgrounds that can bring benefit. So I'm not saying that you have to go out and find this person. It's like, dude, someone that's worked at like is a barista at a coffee shop is probably really good at talking to people. So it's like that's a good characteristic. We talked about it in the podcast with Reaper. Just having the social skills as far as gathering intelligence. That's a good trait to have. So if you can make small talk, some people can't. I usually suck at it. So I mean, I'm all right. I'm on a podcast, so I can do it. But people probably listen to me saying that I suck at talking, and here I am on a podcast, and they're probably like, what are you talking about? But anyway, so, all that to be said.
Well, I think just, life. Oh, go ahead. I think I cut off your.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, all that to be said. I mean, it's different experiences people have gathered through their earlier lives that brings an advantage to your group. It's just well-rounded. It's just rounding off.
Yeah.
the abilities, I guess.
Yeah, that's literally what I was about to say. Is it's just life experience. So
Yeah.
you basically said exactly what I was going to say. I mean, you're not necessarily looking for specific careers, but I think finding people that have lived some life and have developed a level of maturity is a pretty important thing.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned earlier, something that I think works really well in our group is that we all are married. We're all married men. We didn't pick that. That wasn't something that we picked. I think it just kind of worked out that way. But it's a nice thing because everyone understands that experience. Now, people are at different stages of that journey. You know, we got guys like myself who have been married a lot longer, and we've got guys who have only been married, you know, short periods of time, like a year, 2 years, or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm somewhere in the middle. No, I'm just kidding.
Those are all. That's an experience that we all share in our life. You know, so we all understand that we have wives to take care of, and by extension, family. You know, some of us have kids, or many of us actually have kids. So that's a life, you know, just general life experience, and successful life experience. I think is something that it shouldn't be like a prerequisite, but it's a bonus, I think. And then looking at specialty skills, you know, whether it's military background, you know, tradesman, truck driver, you know, nurse, whatever, you know, there's a lot of different backgrounds. These are things you'll learn about a person up until this point. And then you can start thinking about like, well, how does that play into the Modern Minuteman? The answer is that it will play into it, and it should. You should be able to utilize people's skills, and they should feel like they can offer them.
Yeah, that they're a resource for the group. Like you don't want to make a guy feel like he has nothing to add. And I'm not saying you need to just like force it. Actually use the person to benefit the group, because like everyone wants to have everyone wants to be able to benefit from others, but also give others something as well within the group. I feel like if you're the only one that's like teaching, I feel like it's a little bit of a it makes like almost like a hierarchy of like, I'm better than everyone else and you're going to listen to me. Where if you kind of have the approach of like, we want you to kind of take this and run with it, and it kind of gives everyone like kind of a,
it makes them feel like peers.
Yeah.
Because you're peers. You're all your brothers, you know, you're the community. Now there does need to be, you know, a leadership structure. I think that's important to have, and that'll kind of naturally emerge. And some people are, you know, have really good leadership skills, but also having an environment where everyone's able to teach something and offer like a skill, or cover down on, you know, different skill aspects and teaching, also gives the guys, because you'll have guys that obviously by design probably do more of the teaching because they're just, whether they have the experience or they're just naturally better at it, but it gives those guys an opportunity to be a student and go into a learning capacity, because those guys don't know everything, and they need to learn a lot. So, like having experiences that kind of meld together and benefit one another are really important, and that'll naturally kind of occur, I think. Yeah. But keep an eye out for that. And also, you know, I hate to say it, but I think it's a little bit of a red flag if you're kind of courting someone, you're going through this process, and they've never really held any kind of consistent job, or done anything consistently, committed to something over, you know, the span of like, it's all just been short stints. Like, I did this and that, and then, you know, and it's kind of like, maybe it's not a deal breaker. I don't think it would necessarily be a deal breaker for me, but it would be a red flag. I'd be like, you know, there's a commitment issue there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also it's the whole side of like, you know, that life experience lends to just overall maturity. And so if there's not a lot of that there, that can create problems. And I would say that's one of the downsides of accepting in very young individuals, is that they haven't built a lot of life experience yet, and they really don't know who they are yet in a lot of cases. There's exceptions. I've met some guys that are 19 years old that are good head on their shoulders. They already have their, they understand themselves. They have a good moral constitution. They have individual principles. They're pretty well put together. But I just know, as someone in my 30s, I know that, when you're 18, you have an idea of the world and what you're going to be, and then you go through your 20s, and then it's like that can change radically.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that can be learned, and a lot of things can change. And so that's, and again, that's not to say that's a deal breaker, but it's something that you need to pay attention to. So,
yeah. And I would definitely say, that's going to be case by case, like you said. And even if it's someone who doesn't have, maybe hasn't quite fully figured out kind of the type of person, you could definitely still be a very, influential person for that type of younger individual,
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a bunch of young guys that are starting a group, so it's kind of like,
and then you can kind of grow together.
Yeah, which is cool as well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I guess we kind of covered this, but your view on the overall Minutemen mission, we'll just put that it's a blanket statement, but kind of making sure that they view the importance of it as well. Mm-hmm. And if you're someone who's kind of getting brought in, that you're making sure that the group kind of views the importance of it as much as you do as well. So that's a big one. We've kind of covered that throughout, because that was we talked about it at the beginning, making sure, before you start the process, making sure that you understand what you're kind of looking for. But then obviously, once you start dealing with the person, seeing, okay, yeah, how do you feel about politics? You think you should be involved, or you say just screw politics? And that's not I don't know if that's necessarily a deal breaker, because that can be something that I think that mentality was really forced by so many people earlier on. Just don't even worry about it. They don't listen to us anyways. And now we're finally getting back to where people are no, you need to actually be involved.
Yeah.
But when I say finally, it's been over the course of, I don't know, it's been a while now.
Yeah.
It's quite a few years now, and some people never stopped, which is good and good for them. But there was a lot of corruption, and there still is, but there's a lot of, I don't know. I feel like it wasn't a good practice just to be they're not listening to us, so what's the point? But that's a completely different podcast. So that we've talked about.
Yep.
But yeah, just making sure that your views are kind of along the same as far as things that you want to kind of take on, and making sure that person will be dedicated to all those individual things that you're kind of trying to conquer as a group or whatever, whether that's food sustainment, politics, capabilities of fighting, having a defense for the community, aid,
medical response. These are all, and kind of all these things we listed should be probably wrapped up in that. That's kind of that whole mission is not, you shouldn't be hyper focused on one discipline. It should be, and that's on you. That's on your group. But for us, it's very much more focused on, how do we aid our community, and help our community, and protect it. And that goes physically all the way through ideologically. We've been involved a lot in, morality issues in our local cities and stuff like that, and trying to stand against things that we don't agree with. And that's something that, as a group, we've tried to be involved with. So, yeah.
And then, kind of the last thing we have on here, and I'm sure there's more things. If you feel there's more important things to hit, then feel free to do it. But this is kind of just, there's other things that we hit, but I don't really view them as super like this needs to happen kind of thing, but making sure that as far as like political views that you are all you're kind of on the same page. You don't have to be perfectly on the same page, but you definitely want to align along the same, I guess, the same general direction. Because if you want to be proactive in the political arena at all, using a group of individuals is obviously going to be way more effective, and that's something that you can kind of spearhead within the group, and you just have more reach. Now, if you have someone that's in the group that doesn't agree with the things you're doing, then obviously that might...
This can be a problem.
It's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Whether it's just because they don't help or they do the opposite and they try to like counter some of the things you're doing.
Yeah. Well, it'll create division.
Yeah.
I think, again, kind of going back to marriage, like you should probably never marry someone that doesn't share your political ideology.
Yeah.
I mean, even just logistically from a voting perspective, if you both vote opposite of each other, then your votes mean nothing. So it's kind of like that same perspective. And then it's going to create division, and there's going to be, arguments and just tension for no reason. That's stupid. So yeah, you don't need to be perfectly agree across the board, but I think all of your big, all the big ideological subjects that are attached to political things, like pro-life, pro-choice, all that, things like that, big polarizing things like that. You should probably be in agreement.
Sensitive subjects.
Yeah, because it brings me back to like if you do have somebody that completely disagrees, and if you have somebody that's unsure, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You can explain your point of view and why you have it, but you should be able to talk about this. I see it a lot too, where it's like, yeah, just leave politics out of it, and it's like you can't. It's part of our life, and this goes back to what you were just saying of like no one listens any. It's kind of that same thing. It's like if you just leave politics out of it, that's such a big part of this. Like for us, it's a big deal. Like we view,
and for anyone that takes the Minuteman, like they were in politics. The original Minutemen were in politics. They went out and they were actively involved.
Yeah.
So to say that it doesn't matter, I feel like you're missing such a big step. As far as we were given the abilities to have a say in the things that happen in our country. Why would you just be like, no, we're not going to do that? It's like one of our biggest advantages of living in America.
Yep.
And for the listeners that aren't in America, too bad, I guess. Sorry. It's just the way it is. But we're in America, so that's the way it works. That's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
If you're forming a group outside of America, I don't even know where to start there. So
you're
probably doing something illegal.
Well, it depends on where you're at, but you can still apply a lot of the same things we're talking about to that. If you're not in America, and I think you should still value some of these same things.
Yep.
And some places do more than us, anyways nowadays. But
yeah.
But yeah, this is a very important part for us, like for our group. Like we view it as preventative. Being actively involved politically is preventative. It keeps us from having to, it's like you use the First Amendment before you have to use the second. You know what I mean? Now I know those don't necessarily coincide like that, but they kind of do. I mean, you got the First Amendment, and if that fails, then the Second Amendment backs it up and regains your right to use the First Amendment.
Yeah.
So if we're unwilling to use our First Amendment right, then who's to say we're going to be willing to actually use the second?
Yeah.
So it's a big part for us. It's not necessarily a requirement, but it's something that, again, kind of goes back to what you were saying, Stephen. Like if you truly understand this mission and idea, then it's something you should be doing. Like you should just automatically be like, yep, makes sense. I'm going to get more involved, and it can be intimidating and stuff like that, but man, that's why it makes it even better doing it as a group, because you can divide and conquer, and you've got guys that are going to be better at certain things. Like if you're in a situation where you need to make public comment or like write a senator or something like that, you're going to have people in your group that are naturally better at that stuff.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have people that are good at creating like public awareness. They're good at going door to door and having conversations with people, or you're going to have people that are good at like drafting legislation, like actually sitting down and writing like the legal language, or have connections to get that done. So yeah, being involved politically, I think, is super important from this whole mission. So with that being said, having aligned political views or closely aligned political views, I think is like, it's actually, in my opinion, for me, it's a deal breaker. If somebody, it just wouldn't work. We're too involved politically in trying to protect like the values of our community.
Yeah.
To have anybody in the group that just disagreed with that whole idea.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't work. It just doesn't make any sense. And it's going to create division. It's going to create contention, and it's going to create distrust and doubt, and it's going to be a problem. And that's, again, looking back at all of these things we've covered, that's why all these steps are so important, because it's the longevity of the group.
Yeah.
It's like you have to trust these people. You should know, like, any one of these guys I know that they could just go to my house, like if I was in the hospital or something, sick, and then I was like, man, and I really want there to be somebody at my house to make sure everything's okay, hey, can someone go mow my lawn for me? Like, whatever it is, I know that any one of the guys in my group, I'd trust them fully to go there and not do, not make an advance on my wife, or not,
steal
anything from me, or say something weird in front of my kids, or do anything inappropriate, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
They're going to take care of my stuff. They're going to value, like they're going to go do
if anything, they're going to leave it nicer than what they found it done. So,
and that is something that, if you like, that's such a random example, but I'm just saying, like, that's the kind of thing we're talking about.
That way is a good way to look at it. Like, can you trust this person? And that goes back to those characteristics heavily. I think that's such an important thing. Like, are they good men of character? If not, then they're probably not someone that you're going to be able to trust with your information. And then that directly affects the politics as well, usually. Yeah. Like, if their characteristics are a lot of the same, their political views are probably going to kind of match it as well, because...
And that's why we have this recipe set out the way it is.
Yeah.
The salt goes in at this point, the pepper goes in at this point. This is when you add a little bit of that wine. Yeah. Cook it all together, and it makes sense. If you add them out of order, it might still taste okay, but it's going to be a little bit weird probably, Like, this is definitely... There's a method to the madness.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's just, like Steven just said, if you make it through all those first ones, once you get to, all right, it's time to start talking politics, because let's be real, you don't usually start with politics when you start meeting somebody.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, man, nice to meet you.
Unless it's like where you met them at.
True.
Is it like a political rally or something like that, which is very possible.
Yeah.
We've got to know people better through that same thing as well, and come out on the other side maybe looking at that person either differently in a good way or a bad way. So it's kind of like...
Right.
Yeah, so, I mean, it can happen, but not always, yeah. And then last step, I mean, if at this point and there could be more, and this could be over multiple... This could take days, it could take weeks, it could take months, it could take years, honestly.
It really could.
So,
and it should take as long as it takes.
Yeah.
You shouldn't rush it.
You should not rush it.
Yep.
You get down to, if you have an existing team, the team vote, and that's kind of basically getting everyone together and being like, hey, check it out. Some of you guys have met this person, some of you guys haven't. we think they're a good fit, but we don't want to just force them in, and without everyone kind of getting their A-OK. Some of the people may be like, hey, I would like to meet them first before this happens, which just to make that happen, like, hey, you want to go to the range, man? And just have that person be there too. It's like, hey, a couple buddies are going to come,
Yep.
That's an easy way to do it. It's kind of discreet, but it's still like, they don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's going to be people that are also on the other side of that, where they're just like, dude, if you trust him, I trust him. And that is a thing as well.
Yeah.
Or if you like him, I like him, kind of thing. So that happens, so just, I think, getting the A-OK from everyone is super important. That way it doesn't just feel like going back to that whole, like, we're all peers.
Yeah.
It's not just getting forced in. Without people's, like, this seems like it's a good move, or, I don't know. I think we should maybe wait on this a little longer. There's some red flags for me. And it's like, okay, I'm going to take that into consideration, because, like, if you got red flags I didn't pick up on, then we're going to continue the process of still trying to figure this out until we get that dialed in.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I think that's a super important step.
Yeah, I agree. And that's something that, we try to do with our guys. It's like, hey, anytime we've had someone we're like a prospect, I guess you could say, someone we're interested in getting to know
Biker
more.
gang.
Yeah. No, dude.
We're all riding around.
I didn't even think about that.
Just Harleys right now, dude.
No, dude.
Sons of Anarchy, dude.
No, not that. Dude. So dumb.
I mean, if that's what you're doing,
you're gay. No. No, I'm just kidding. No, but anyways, we try to tell, like, the group, like, hey, here's some individuals we've started to consider. Like, we haven't even really started the courting process yet.
Yeah.
But these are people we've met, that people we found that feel like they could potentially be a good fit. So we try to let our guys know, like, early, it's like, hey, just so here's why we think they might be. We don't know. We haven't really started getting to know them yet. And get a general consensus right out the gate. Explain, like, here's some things that they would bring to the table. Here's some things about their personality that I think is really valuable, or like good, like a positive, and then here's some potential cons that we've picked up on. It sounds really weird. Like, it sounds like, it's like, whoa, you have that much information? It's like, yeah, because, we naturally do this in our lives anyways, as it is. With people, we figure out, if you're going to be compatible with them or not. So then, like what Steven said earlier, you then think about, will they be compatible with the group? And if all those things start to, like, come together, we try to, like, early on say, hey, just so you know, this is somebody we're going to start getting to know more. And when the time comes, if anyone would like to also get to know them, we'll start, if we make it that far, we'll start bringing people together and going for it. So, but yeah, having, you don't ever want to, in my opinion at least, you don't ever want to just add somebody and be like, yeah, just so everybody knows these guys are here now, or this guy's here now, and deal with it. You know what I mean? Like, have some kind of conversation, because you never know. Someone in your group could know that person and be like, dude, like, what have you done? Like, that guy's horrible. I actually, like, that guy, cheated on my sister's friend or whatever, like, there's just stuff like that, especially in the small towns, that you just would never know until you do, kind of thing. So, and that's, again, the whole process should flesh that kind of stuff out. But yeah, having a vote, I think is really important. Now, obviously, if you're, if it's just you and you haven't formed anybody yet, then I mean, I guess you can ask yourself for a vote if you want, but it's much easier if you're just at the beginning stages. Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, dude, this guy's checking all the box, dude. We're gonna roll with it. Yeah, and but yeah, as far as, like, if you're, that's kind of how we do it. But as far as then taking that group and kind of either getting that guy to be involved and starting to get to know everyone else,
Or if you're just getting started, like some of the things that you can start doing that's going to start building upon your cohesiveness and just the overall group's ability, I guess team building and coordination.
Yeah, so really quick before we get into that, I just wanted to summarize the building side just for everybody, just to run through these. So finding people, where to find them,
Well, first, having a good plan.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So, yeah, full summary for where we're at so far, because I know there's been a lot of jumping around. What's your goals? What are your goals as a team? What's your mission statement? What's your plan? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? Then you got to start finding people. Be proactive. Gun stores, the gym, community events, church, your job, et cetera, et cetera. The courting process, getting to know them better. So inviting them outside of that environment you know them in.
Yeah.
Going to get coffee, going to shoot together, going to, go to the gym together, whatever. A lot of these same things, but outside of where you've met them, start implementing them in other places that would more apply to like what you're going to be doing as a whole. Just get to know them. Like you're just getting to know them, building a relationship. Kind of simultaneously in that, you're going to be doing your intelligence gathering, getting to know them, basically figuring out if you can trust them. That's really what this is as a whole. Can you trust this person? Looking for red flags, paying attention to those red flags, getting some other opinions, if possible, on red flags. If that's an opportunity, if you have other people already in the group or whatever. What kind of experience do they have? Where are they at in their life? What kind of life have they lived? What mistakes have they made? What successes have they had? What careers have they done? What kind of background do they have? What's their view on the overall Minuteman mission? This whole thing. This should be something that you would kind of know by now, but by this point, you're introducing them to the whole concept. Do they agree with the overall mission that you have? That mission you set at the very beginning, do they not only agree with it, do they jive with it? Do they meld with it? Are they excited? That's something that, really quick on that, that's something I've noticed with most of the guys that we've gotten up into this point. When it comes time to like explain where we're at, they're like really excited that it's as involved as it is.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I'm really excited to hear that that's where you guys are at. Like I was kind of thinking you were, but
Yeah, so, we're humans are naturally kind of pack animals, especially men. So like having that involved with a group is fun.
Yeah. And then beyond that, political views. You should be, for the most part, politically aligned. You should value the same things. For the most part, you should generally vote the same way. Sounds weird, but that absolutely matters. And then finally, you should all make a decision as a team, because you're peers, you're brothers, and there should be agreeance on accepting someone into the group, or if you're joining a group, that should be something you should figure out if it's going to be a good fit for you. Before
see if you can meet some of the other individuals, maybe.
Yep.
And maybe that might not be as accessible.
Yeah.
But you can get a good idea based off of the people that you have met, maybe through that person, that maybe some of those, maybe some of the individuals within the group. So,
yeah.
But anyways, so kind of getting into some of the team building, coordination, and cohesiveness. This is all stuff we've covered in other podcasts, but we're just going to kind of rip through this. And this just kind of gives people areas that they can start working on immediately and start getting after it. One of the coolest things that I think we do, and I think it's probably something that other people do as well, and it's a great place to start, especially for like someone just coming in, like this is a good place to start, is having we kind of have like meetings / briefings that we have. It's super laid back. We pick a location that we all meet up at, and we go over different things that we're trying to do, whether that's training events. Hey, we're going to go mow these people's lawns, or hey, we're going to start doing this or that, or This is something that we're going to do. We're going to go do a day range this date, So you start scheduling out dates, and you're trying to make it work for everyone's schedule. Obviously, it's not going to always work. We all have busy schedules, so but you're kind of coming up with a game plan and making sure everyone's tracking what's going on. So I think that's super important to do. Just keeps everyone in the loop and make sure that everyone's kind of tracking. Like no one's really left in the dark. It's not like how it was in the military, where when you're just like a private, you're just like have no idea what you're doing at work every day that you show up to work. You're just like, dude, I'm here.
Yep.
I'm a straight Joseph, and I just have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with my hands. So,
yeah, and you're just I think it's a great way to communicate to the group as a group, and it's a great way to get face to face with people, and it's be intentional about this. Like for us, we try to do a very intentional meet every quarter. We try. It doesn't always happen. Unless something big happens, then we'll hold one. We'll have one. We need to get together. We need to talk about this. Like this happened in our community. We need to get together, talk about this, or like, hey guys, this new law happened, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
Or hey, so and so got hurt, and we're gonna gather around his family, or whatever it is. That's the kind of stuff that you're doing these for. But you should have intentional ones that you're doing often. And like what I mean by intentional is it's not just getting together, hanging out, like having a good time.
Yeah.
That comes later.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, there's a time and a place for that. But this is intentional. This is like, okay, we have an agenda we're going to get through. We're going to talk about these things. Let's get everybody's opinion on it.
Yeah.
Let's discuss this as a group.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to make, like Steven said, I believe it shouldn't be like, I call this meeting to order. Like it should be.
No, it's literally like the Star
back.
Wars, like if that's what you're envisioning, that's exactly what it is.
The what?
Like in Star Wars, where they got all those like floating things, and everyone's just out there like gathering around.
You talking about the Senate?
Yeah, dude. That's literally what it's like.
Henceforth. Oh, dude. The first intergalactic republic, or whatever he says. Empire. It's Empire. Yeah, dude, that's exactly how it is. We actually have those pods. We go into that big
super
space.
Expensive, but worth the investment.
Yeah. Yeah, you just have to fight off the non-human biologics.
Yeah, and then you can have them.
Anyways, we usually get some food, kick back. We definitely, it's structured. Like, we'll talk about like, hey, these are things that are going on. Here's some things we have planned. Here's some ideas. Like, what do you guys think?
Yeah, we'll build layouts for them.
Yeah,
kind of keep us on task because me and Jacob ramble around,
dude, and we're not the only ramblers in the group, dude.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So what's after that?
So, this in no particular order. I think that one definitely is a good way to start. So maybe start with that because then it's like, hey, this is so and so. Oh, it's just that awkward moment of like everyone just like shaking each other's hands and just like turning into some sort of stinky cheese or something. I don't know. Anyways,
it's like that for anybody that grew up in church. It's like, in Southern Baptist churches. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, dude.
All right, everybody, stand up and find someone next to you and introduce yourself. And you just have this awkward 5 minutes of just like, hey, well, that's good to see you this morning. Last week. All right, everybody, let's pray. You're just like, and then it's still just.
Yeah, there's still just that guy that does not give a crap, and he's just and he can't hear anything because he doesn't have his hearing aids in, and he's just like, no, and it's like in the middle of prayer, and he's still just going. They're just like, shh,
we're praying, John. John, we're praying. Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah. No, dude. You're about to kill all our listeners with that breathing.
Anyways.
You're killing me. So, day trainings, man. This can this is not like, this covers a lot, dude. Like, you can do a lot with these. This is basically a way to isolate individual skills and kind of be like, yeah, we're focusing on this today, you know. And I'm not talking about like as simple as like, we're gonna just work on reloads. I mean, you can do that if you really want, but like, hey, we're all gonna get together and get more familiarized with our radios. Okay, cool, let's do it. Yep. Or hey, we're gonna all get together and we're gonna work on handgun. Or hey, we're gonna all work on AR. Or we're gonna do a combo of the two. Or we're gonna do more precision shooting. Or we're gonna do food sustainment. We're gonna do foraging. Like, let's go pick berries and figure out like what's gonna kill you and what's not.
Yeah.
Maybe not like actually like by like trying them, but like maybe do some research and
everyone just watching you. Just try that. Try it, Steven.
It's like the it's
watch. Steven, go ahead. Eat it. No, dude. Trash.
It just reminds me of like the military doctrine for dealing with chemical warfare, dude. It's like the lower enlisted person
takes off his mask.
You got to crack the seal and just like watch him for like the next 15 minutes. You're just like,
it's so weird,
dude. I remember when they told me that when we were getting ready to go to like Syria, when all that they were just like killing kids and stuff over there, chemical warfare, and I was like, when I heard that was like the doctrine, I just remember like looking over at my buddy Renfro, who was like the lowest enlisted guy, and I was just like, dude, you're screwed, man. Like, but the problem is, you think about it, it's like, dude, it's not very many events until it gets up to you. Like,
no, it's not.
Like when you're still
the old,
you're like a PFC enlisted. Or like even a specialist, you're still just like, dude, there's still quite a bit of guys ahead of me, and I'm not really that high above anyone else, really.
Yeah, that whole doctrine, I always remember being like, really? Like, there's not like a stick that like turns color or something, you know? Like, why is that?
I think that's like from like old.
I think so too.
The olden days, as old Rocket would say, dude.
Yeah. The olden days.
And we're talking about when machine guns were still a thing. No, so anyways, we're having a lot of flashbacks to other podcasts in this one. But
that's all right. World.
So yeah, day trainings. Those are sweet. You can kind of isolate individual skills, and this kind of allows different people to be like, hey, you're a lot better in this area. I'm gonna, like, if you don't mind, you mind running this class, or they'll be like, hey, can I run a class on this? Yeah, let's schedule a date to do that. And that goes back to those meetings. You can kind of start coordinating some of that.
Yeah. And these can be very, like, much more frequent. They can happen several times a month, you know?
Yeah.
When we say day trainings, we don't mean like daily training, unless you're sick and you can pull that off. Like, if you can, dude, that's like, you have a really awesome and committed group. That doesn't work for us. We all have too much variation in our lives. We have to schedule, like, especially with just Steven and I alone, not including any of the other guys, which they factor in very much as well, but just using us as an example. Like, you know, we're both very, very much like our extra time soaked up by this business. We both have wives and kids, and we both also, you know, especially Steven works it's rotational, so it works, but Steven works a full-time job. So it's like you're on top of that. And then I do a lot of side work stuff, like construction-based side work stuff, just to make some extra cash here and there.
And apparently I do too sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like,
I did some side work construction.
Yeah, you did
a couple days ago
with me. So yeah, it is very, I in my life, the way my life is now, I have to schedule things, and I have to schedule them out in advance. So, but take the time to do that and schedule things, get things going, get things in the calendar, and prioritize it. Like, this is really where, you know, with the day trainings, like, if you got guys that miss them here and there, that's fine, because these are a little more casual. It's probably going to be things you repeat. You know, they're going to be like things you can validate skills. Like, hey guys, we're going to get back together and we're gonna do, we're gonna do medical stuff. Whoa, ready ups.
No, I'm just kidding.
You know, we're gonna practice team medical stuff again today. You know, so if you didn't make the last one, you know, kind of thing.
Like, try to make this one.
Yeah. No. But yeah. So, and literally, as the name implies, it's a day. It's like you're spending a day doing it. So, you know, whatever, 8 hours. You know, the way we usually do it is like we schedule it, start early in the morning. We'll all get lunch together, go into the evening, and then we're done before dinner time kind of thing. And then everyone goes home to their families. So it's kind of the general way we do it. But yeah.
Yeah. And then field training exercises, this is going to be more like extended periods of time.
Yep.
And this is kind of an opportunity to take some of those things that you did in your day trainings and like actually apply it to a more realistic fashion, whether that's, hey, we're just going to go out into the woods and divide up into individual stuff and just go out and just survive. You're going to have to build shelters and whatever. You know, that's just an example. I'm just throwing something out there. Or, hey, we're going to just work on like a QRF. Like we'll set up a mission to do a QRF, and basically you got to go get someone and evacuate them out. That's a good little exercise. It's going to be, you know, at least one night, if not multiple nights. You know, you're going to be out there. And this is a good opportunity to actually start finding out what gear works for you. And this is like, I mean, here in Alaska, we get rained on a lot. You learn if your wet weather gear actually is built for wet weather, if it just is like advertised to work for wet weather.
Yeah, you definitely will. Yep.
Or you're going to find out like, hey, dude, this rucksack sucks.
Yeah.
My left arm falls asleep when I wear it.
You're going to learn the difference between that Amazon poncho and that surplus poncho that you bought.
Yeah. You know? you're gonna get the opportunity to start running night vision and thermal units, and you can do that on the day training stuff too. But I'm just saying, like, this is where you're actually able to run all your gear encompassing, like all the encompassing gear, I guess is better. That's a better way to put it. But
while doing a lot of the skills, and doing it together for long periods of time together.
Yeah.
Because
that's overlooked as well. This is all gonna start building the bonds, and that's kind of the point. Like, yes, you're learning the skills, but you're also getting so much tighter as a group by doing all these things together, going through the suck together. Like, that's where some of the best bonds are made, is just like going through a crappy time with someone, like being out in the rain and just getting soaked to the point of just borderline just craziness,
insanity.
Like, yeah, you're borderline insane, but
it's good for you. It's good for your team.
Going along with the training, you can do remote training, which is something that is more easily done on a daily schedule.
Yeah.
This is something, if you got like a group chat, or even like you could have a bunch of different ways to communicate. If it's just like, I don't know, there's a lot of ways. We've got the benefit of having technology now, so it's like, do what you got to do. But yeah, you can just, hey, this person wants to teach a 1 week course on this stuff, and basically each day you're just sending out videos or articles or something that you wrote up yourself or whatever it may be, like teaching the group on something that you kind of like are interested in, or you kind of specialize in, if that's something that you've done in like a more professional realm as well. So
yeah,
that's a super cool way to like just being like almost learning, but still not really taking up much time to do it, you know. And it's pushing people to learn things that they don't know, like they don't really care, not that they don't care to learn, but they're not as passionate to learn about. It kind of forces people into that, which I think is cool.
It's good because, you know, this whole concept is so versatile, and it's so dependent on unknown parameters. You know what I mean? Like we don't know. We're trying to be prepared, but we don't necessarily know what we're being prepared for in a weird way. Yeah. So you have to know a lot of different things, and you have to understand a lot. And the more self-reliant you are as a community in general, the more you have to know how to do. Yeah. You have to do things yourself. So I think that's where you're able to cover down on a lot of knowledge that you wouldn't otherwise get. You know, it might be something that you're not necessarily going to need to do like full committed field exercises or day trainings for, but they're things you should be learning. And it's a good way to hold each other accountable too. Cause it's like, hey, so-and-so's doing a remote training. Like they're doing they're teaching us about whatever. And it's like, everyone's kind of learning about it together. And then you can kind of oh, what'd you think about that? Yeah. And then you can kind of call back to it later. Like, and then maybe it will be something you implement at a later date where it's like, hey, we did we all went over this, like virtually, together as a team. Now we're going to schedule a day training on that topic and get more into the specifics, that kind of stuff. So,
yeah. Another huge thing, joint physical fitness. So this is going back to building camaraderie, going through sucky situations with each other, whether that's being out in the rain in a field exercise or doing like a super long ruck march with pretty heavy weight. It's like it's gonna suck, and it's gonna bring everyone closer because you're gonna do it together and you're gonna finish together. So and just having that, the more you do that kind of stuff, obviously it builds fitness as well. So that's a benefit of it. And that's kind of the main goal, but it also builds camaraderie in every time that you do it. Like we do ruck marches often, we'll invite people out. Let's go do a ruck. You can go to the gym. You can go, if you're doing jiu-jitsu, awesome.
Yeah.
Go do jiu-jitsu together. There's a bunch of things. Run. It can be anything and everything, but
yeah. And this shouldn't be confused too much with your daily fitness. Like you should be staying physically fit, or becoming physically fit,
on your own.
Yeah. This should be like a daily discipline, just a lifestyle, if you will. But, this is in addition to that. It's like, hey, make sure you're prioritizing physical fitness as a group. If that means your whole group goes to the gym every day, that's sick. Awesome. But it might, because schedules are so different, it might mean like, hey, let's plan, like, hey, let's all go to this is random, but let's all go to the pool and like swim, and do laps and like also do like water recovery stuff.
Yeah, I'm just envisioning like you going in there with like your clothes on and you're just like, yeah, we're swimming with our clothes on today.
Yeah, dude.
Just go in there and start doing like,
that's sick. Like writing that idea
ruck march
down.
Floats. Like, you just do it in a lake.
Yeah, exactly.
Be a little,
stuff
more
like
discreet,
that. Water, or like you said, I mean, something we do here all the time in the winters, like snowshoeing with all of our packs on.
Yep.
Like, and it sucks. And, we try to do it.
But it makes you better. It makes you better at like
test your equipment.
Walking in snowshoes isn't like just like walking normally. Like there's actually a little bit of a learning curve behind it.
Technique.
It's not like it's super hard to figure out. Like I think just going out there, you could be probably not taught anything and figure out like what to do and what not to do, because you'll end up just like falling flat on your face or whatever, just by like doing the wrong step. You're just like going down a hill, and it's like, yep. Like that happened to me the first time I ever walked in snowshoes. I went flopping down that hillside like a dummy. But Jacob was with me for
just
it.
Turned into a snowball,
dude. Yeah, I just rolled, dude. But anyway, so yeah, that's incredibly important. This is super vague, but it covers a lot of stuff. Team building events, which is kind of like everything that's in here, but that's going to be like it doesn't all have to be serious. Like that's just going to be like having fun. Like whether that's camping, that could be going out and getting food together, going to get coffee, devotions, going shooting. A little bit less like regimented shooting, maybe being like, yeah, we're going to pull out the M1 Garand and just go out and like shoot with some fun guns, or like and then like hunting, which I think hunting's kind of a weird one because it's an event, but it's also, I think, incredibly important to, as the Modern Minutemen, to be gathering food. We go back to like food sustainment. If you have food that's processed, and which we plan to maybe do an episode. Well, we will be doing an episode on that eventually. But talking about, just the importance of not only growing food, but also, gathering food through hunting, or fishing. Yeah,
like literally, that's a perfect segue to this example. Like a bunch like me, you, and a few of the other guys from the group went fishing together last week, and it was a blast,
dude.
Like,
so much fun.
It was so much fun. We were laughing and just smoking fish, dude. We were just catching them like crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was fun. Like if some of us were more experienced at fishing than the other guys, so you have an opportunity to like, teamwork together and like,
it's like once one limit's out, then it's like, yo, dude,
I'm catching for your limit.
I'm catching for your limit now. Like,
but then also like you got guys
shady
learning
to be saying on a podcast, but hey, whatever. Send
it. Nah, we're good. As long as it's went to them,
Yeah.
But yeah, and it did. So yeah, but I mean that was so fun, and it's like stuff like that it's just so good. And yeah, it can be anything. I mean, something I really personally enjoy doing is like, I really like cooking food for people and like making something and like, making something really unique or just good and then Yummy. Watching people like enjoy it, and it's like, that's a fun thing. So that's something that like you can do, hey, I'm going to host a dinner and whatever.
If you like golfing, go golf.
Yeah.
If you like bowling, go bowl. If you like
the other thing I'd say
playing
is
basketball, go hit the rec. Like go play rec ball. Like, dude, if there's something you like to do, just do it as a group. It's fun to do.
And anybody in your group can initiate that, and other people should be initiating it, and everyone should feel like they can. And the other thing I'd say is try to, if it's something you might not be as into, but that someone else in your group, they really enjoy doing that, and it's important to them. Try to do it. Like, go give it a shot, give it the time of day. Like, you'll end up having fun, I've done things that, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll come do that, before, just in general, and then, but I end up having a blast because I'm there with people I enjoy being there with,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that just furthers that bond that you'll have.
Yeah. And going back to like, you're preparing for a very serious event, but you can have lots of fun doing it.
Yeah, and you should. It shouldn't be so, humdrum and just dark clouds the whole time. Like, guys, this is serious. Like, dude, the amount of just laughing and giggling that happens at at like field training exercises sometimes. It's hilarious. I mean, there's a time to be serious, and like when you're practicing, especially like noise discipline or things like that for whatever you're doing, you got to lock it in and button it down.
Call people out if they're getting a little out of hand.
Yeah, but I mean, you should feel like you can cut loose and have a good time.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, dude, it definitely happens, man.
Yeah.
So then, getting into political involvement, we kind of talked about this like political views, but this is actually being involved. So this is where that we've kind of harped on this already, but that is super important. In order to be politically involved, your views have to kind of align. So there's a lot of things you can do, whether it's going to city council meetings and trying to put things into motion that you want for the community or whatever it may be. It could be all the way up to the Senate, trying to get stuff for the state, and then farther and farther. I mean, it's just as far as you want to go with it, honestly. So some people are going to be really, really good at this, and some people are just going to be trash at it, and that's just the way that is. But even if you're trash at it, you can still be helpful to those that are good at it by just being like, yo, what do you need me to do? So that's what's cool about it, That's kind of all I got to say about that, just because we've already covered a lot of that. So
I mean, like we were saying, it's preventative action, for a lot of this stuff. I mean, we've said this multiple times before, but you shouldn't want a fight.
Yeah, no.
We prepare for different, emergencies and potentially having to defend the freedoms we love and hold dear, but we shouldn't want that.
No.
And a huge part of preventing anything like that is being politically involved. So doing that as a team is much better than doing it by yourself. You're going to feel way more motivated to do it. It's like anything. There's strength in numbers. So it's awesome to do it with people and then be able to like debrief, because dude, like a lot of the political involvement that I've personally been in, as of late has been exhausting, and it's nice to be able to go through that with people you know, trust and love, and then afterwards you can talk about it and be like, dude, that sucked, and then you can start laughing about it and be like, oh man, you know,
Yeah.
like it's a lot easier than just grinding on your own and dealing with it. So
Yeah. And then the last category that we got in here is community involvement. So that's
huge.
That's huge, man. You can't be, and we've covered this before, you can't just be that group of people when a terrible event happens that just comes out of the shadows and expect people to just be like, yeah, we'll just let you guys come in and just help out, because you got to have bonds that were created.
The League of Shadows.
Yeah, dude. Seriously. Like shady kind of. Most people aren't going to be okay with that. So, yeah, be involved with your community, whether that's, you know, going out and picking trash, or, you know, doing search and rescue, or
donating blood at a blood drive.
Yeah. It's like
donating to the food bank, like volunteering for meals.
Yeah. Being involved, and also being like that friendly face that communicates with people and is, and if you have good morals and all that stuff, like, you should be kind of a naturally pretty friendly person, I would imagine.
Well, and this is the whole point. The whole idea of this whole thing is, you know, being there for your community and being ready to step up for your community. So if that's the whole idea, then step up for your community now. Like, there's a lot of things you can do within your community right now that will help. And this is an area that I personally need to be better in, like, as far as like, you know, like I've done a lot politically recently in the community, and there's been things that's led to, but, you know, the more passive things like, you know, maybe collecting things like here's an idea. You can collect things as a group that are no longer needed and take them down to the Salvation Army.
Yeah.
Or like I said, the food bank is most places have food banks. Go down, they're nonprofit and they always need help. Like, go down there, help them out, you know, volunteer at the homeless shelter, you know, things like that. And it's like, it's going to be fulfilling. You're going to be actually helping your community in a physical way that's immediate. You know, it's not all preventative or it's not all preparedness based. It's like things that work now. Search and rescue, that's something that I think every Minuteman group should highly consider doing. Talk about a way to implement skills and gear now
and doing
a realistic method.
Yep.
I mean, it's different in every state. In other countries, things are different. And also some states just don't have a big issue there. I mean, here in Alaska, it's a constant thing. Like, I think we're the only state that has like a full-time paid search and rescue, like, coordination. There's like a lot of it's volunteer, or a lot of it's handled through like fire departments and stuff like that. So, I mean, most states have something in place for that. But I mean, I'm pretty sure Alaska, I could be wrong, so don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty certain that Alaska is the only state that has like a fully like set up organization specifically for that, that's like paid and managed and funded by the state, because it's so prevalent here. But we still need volunteers. And with that being said, though, because it's so volunteer based in a lot of other states, like, you'd be amazed. You start looking around and reaching out how much need there is for stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that is like so awesome. Like, a community member gets lost out just enjoying their freedoms and they need help. And, you know, you're able to go out and be there and lend them. You don't know who they are, but you're able to go get them, hopefully, or help get them.
Yeah.
I remember telling my wife that, you know, back a while ago when we were starting to get into the search and rescue kind of mindset, and she's like, "Oh man, she was kind of like, that's another thing that you'll have to go do, you know, here and there." I was like, "I know," and I said, "Yeah, I know," and which is why I was talking about it with her, because obviously I wanted her to be on the same page, you know, or make sure she was, and make sure it wasn't gonna strain anything. And it's like, yeah, no, she's like, that's very much you and the kind of stuff you do, so I understand. But she was kind of like, yeah, that's a whole other thing that you'll have to leave for here and there. And I was like, I know. And then I said, but if I was lost out there somewhere, wouldn't you want somebody that thinks the way that we do to be out there, like, heartlessly looking for me?
Yeah.
And she was like, oh yeah, absolutely. It's like, so yeah, that person's got to be someone, and the longer you live life, the more you realize in situations that it's like, man, every time you say somebody's got to do something about it, you start realizing more and more that somebody is you.
Yeah.
So, but that same concept applies across the board. It's not just for search and rescue. It could be a lot of different things. It could be, like Steven said, going and picking up trash on the side of the road. You always see those like groups of people out there with like reflective vests on, like picking up trash. It's like
inmates.
Sometimes, yeah. But yeah, you can do the whole adopt a highway thing or whatever it's called and donate your time. Yeah, I mean, church, like, donate or like volunteer at your church and help out. I mean, there's tons of things, but the more involved you can be, the more recognized you're going to be. This plays into hearts and minds a little bit.
Yeah.
So then you're not the League of Shadows coming out of the wilderness and you're just like, we're here to save the day. And everyone's just like, who are you? And like, why would we listen to you? But if you're known in your community for being, you're a familiar, friendly face that is always affiliated with something positive, you're going to be a lot more accepted than if you weren't. And that's not the sole reason. I mean, the sole reason you're doing this should be because you care about your community. And that's the whole concept of this whole thing to begin with, is that you want to be there for your community.
Yeah.
So,
but it's
that's a byproduct though.
Yeah, it's a byproduct.
Yeah.
Well, sweet.
But yes, some other things I kind of wanted to cover down on, just that are kind of more like housekeeping things specifically for the team, that are going to come up. Because that's basically the whole recipe on how to build it. I mean, you've got, the concept, you've got all of your recruitment stuff that we talked about, and then you've got your team building and coordination and cohesiveness kind of stuff that we just worked through. There's some logistical things that have to kind of be covered down on too, and also agreed upon. And a lot of it is like gear related. So you're going to have to start coming to the realization of like, what are we doing? Like, what's our mission and what things do we need to implement team wide to make that work? So there's going to have to be requirements, because this is all, I mean, it's all a volunteer based thing. It's going to have to be adjusted accordingly. This is something that another question we get a lot about. What do you do if you got guys that they're willing to commit, they're willing to be a part of this whole thing, but they can't afford to buy any of the essential equipment that they need, So that's an example.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. They can afford to get a bunch of stuff, but they can't seem to carve out the time. These are both equally important things. I wouldn't say equally important. They're both very important. I would say the time commitment's more important than the gear commitment or the financial commitment. But they both need to happen.
Yeah.
You got to have people that are willing to commit time and resources to this concept. And if they're not, then they probably aren't a good candidate. And hopefully that's something you've figured out up until this point. It shouldn't be like you've made it all in and then you find out that you've got someone that won't dedicate time and money or time and resources. You've got to. That's the whole thing. Like you're sacrificing personal well-being in a way for the benefit of this community, this group.
Yeah.
And that's going to take time and resources. So there's a couple ways you can manage that. You can do, if you're someone that's in your group and like, hey, I'm very financially stable, or I have a lot of resources, and I can manage covering down where needed. You can take that approach, or you can be like, hey, I know this guy might not be able to afford something, or this guy might not be able to, whatever the case may be, and you're able to kind of be like, I got you, we'll work something out later, but bottom line is you got to be able to, you got to have requirements. You got to have time, like time requirements You know, like I think it's important to have that expectation. Like you should try to make all these trainings. Like it should be a priority for you to make all these. We get life happens. You're going to miss some. But if you've got somebody that's just missing a bunch of training all the time, then it's going to create a point of contention. And then it's also going to start to raise issues about commitment. And then same thing, if you've got somebody that, you know, is never able to progress and get the things that are necessary, the equipment and resources that are necessary to do this thing, then same thing. It's like, again, commitment, and, you know, let's figure out a plan so we can start getting you up to speed. But yeah, just some little things like that go along with this whole thing. That's more into, like team longevity, I think, but it's very much a part of team effectiveness. You know, they go hand in hand. If you got somebody that doesn't have any of the gear to do any of this stuff, then they're not going to be an asset. They're going to be a liability. And if you have somebody that never comes and trains with the team, they're not going to be an asset. They're going to be a liability. So they kind of go hand in hand. So that's something that you should be paying attention to.
Definitely
at the beginning as you're kind of building somebody. So,
I think that's a good point.
But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in at the end. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, that's kind of how we approach it. Yeah,
I'm sure there's other ways to do it, but that's obviously we're not gonna. That's how we do it. So that's how we're gonna advise others to do it.
And it's a question we have gotten. I mean, I can't even count how many times that's come through.
Yeah.
And on that, I mean, if you do have questions, specifically even on this, like you're one of these people that has reached out and you've asked that question. Hopefully it's been answered now. If you have any follow-on questions or just in general, any questions at all for us, please don't hesitate to reach out. Steven and I will love to talk with you. And yeah, if you reach out on Instagram, that's probably the best place to do it. Because both Steven and I are going to have access to it. So we both run our Instagram. There's no one else. We've been asked this before too. Like if we have like a social media manager, no, we don't. It's literally me and Steven. So if you reach out and you get a response, it's from one of us.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's from both of us. There's a few conversations that it's like
we've leapfrogged.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
Steven will answer some questions and then I'll go in there and read it and then I'll start answering some questions. And
we try to be transparent though. Like, hey, this is you were talking to Jacob earlier, this is Steven now or whatever.
Yeah, because we don't want to, and because a lot of it too is like we think very similar, so it's like I don't really think anything of it, but then I realize I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of weird if I was talking to somebody and I'm actually talking to like two different people and didn't realize it. So yeah, we try to be like, you know, we've tried to get in the habit of always signing things we say with our name. Like sometimes you may have, if you've been someone that's talked to us, you'll see that it'll say like Jacob at the end or Steven, but we're horrible about remembering to do that. So, it doesn't always happen, but, reach out, hit us up. You can email us too. We love hearing from you and we'll try to answer questions. Especially on this. This is like, this right here is one of the biggest reasons we do the podcast because we want to help cultivate groups like this. I think it should be something that we both think it should be something that becomes more commonplace in society. Like it's just a normal thing. It's like, oh yeah, I got a group of guys over here. Oh sweet, I've got a group of guys that, maybe our groups can get together. You're like, it'd just be so cool if it was like,
joint trainings and all sorts of cool stuff going on. It just expands.
Commonplace for solid men to just get together and rely on each other and trust one another and grow together and, spend time with one another. I think it'd be cool.
Yeah.
So bettering their families for it,
Yeah. No, it's definitely, it's been so much fun. Like the last few years of us being, it's been quite a few years now, but yeah. It seems like it's not been that long, but it's actually, you start looking at it's been years. So, yeah, it's been so much fun. It's been kind of gives you something to, I don't know, and maybe that's coming from being in the military. It like leaves a little bit of that void of like just a group of people that you can just like
camaraderie, dude.
yeah, that you have, that you trust. And man, that was something that we had lots of fun, and that was something that, like, you know, those relationships were built because of not only going through all the suck and all the training with each other, but also like constantly hanging out on the weekends and and going to do fun things together and just truly enjoying each other's company. So I think that's something important that I took away from, you know, the military, I think, as far as like how to build that camaraderie.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, that's all I got. And if you got anything else, we can wrap it up. And
yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, just pursue it, take it seriously, you know, dedicate the time and energy to it, because it pays dividends, and I think it's just actually a pretty natural thing. And again, it's a big reason why we do what we do. And yeah, if you got any questions or want any more information on things, and maybe you've got specific instances you're confused about, we'll help you any way we can. So feel free to reach out. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
cool. We'll catch you guys next time.